Geoff just said he can't make it because he forgot and promised his kids that he'd take them ice skating.
Okay, well, that's a
So
good
he's
reason.
taking his kids ice skating. So I guess he won't be here. I don't know. Maybe he'll be back from ice skating and show up. Who knows?
He definitely will be on thin ice.
But I sent him the invite, and he's like, "Oh crap, I forgot."
Well, that is a reason why we do a 3-hour show, so that people can show up late.
Yeah, why not?
3-hour show.
Maybe Tim will show up tonight. I mean, I can't imagine they have any school events today.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see.
Probably.
Yeah, we couldn't do we had the Portuguese show this week with Mind the Comics, but I wasn't going to be able to make it because I got out at midnight. So normally the show would be over by then. So I got off from work and I put in YouTube. Wait, are these guys still on? They are. They've been on for 2.5 hours. So I jumped for the last half an hour.
Good stuff. What?
Gus hasn't come up with names for us yet. I'm surprised.
Give him a moment. We've got 0. We had 1 viewer. Now we've got 0 viewers. So the one person saw Geoff wasn't here and left.
We ran.
We are so uninteresting.
Obviously. Good evening, Comic Crack. How are you doing?
Well,
hello, Chad.
At least Canada's with us.
Yeah. Canada's with us.
Canada doesn't have When's Canadian Thanksgiving?
It's like in July or something. Some weird.
Canadian Thanksgiving, I think, is in October, if I'm not mistaken. Terrence, let us know if we're right or wrong, or.
I know I'm wrong.
Thanksgiving is. I think it's in October.
It's sometime or another.
Maybe September. Take off, you hoser.
Thanks. What now?
Is this probably some weird American import that they have in Ontario? Terrence is a real Canadian, a man from the woods. Winnipeg.
The Adventures of Wolverine McAllister. Where did that took place in Canada? I think someplace. I can't remember where though. I have to reread. Like I still have to look up on my my comic shop want list.
Mm-hmm.
I have a bunch of issues of Strangers in Paradise I'm missing.
Yeah.
A bunch of issues of the Spirit comic book, the kitchen sink one that I'm missing. And I want to add some Journey, the Adventures of Wolverine McAllister. I'm missing a few issues of that too. I don't know if I'll ever get them, because someday I'll get them. Someday when I'm like, because they're very low priority comics in terms of, it's like, I don't really need any of them. They're just filling in holes of stuff that.
I saw something real interesting the other day. They announced there's going to be a Gru animated project.
Oh yeah, no, it's just been optioned. There's no project.
It's actually happening. It's gone into development. They don't know if it's going to be a TV series or a movie.
Canada celebrates Thanksgiving every day. Texas remains in place.
Yeah, but and then the prices on like the last 2 epic issues of Gru.
Mm-hmm.
Good God, I should have bought like 10 copies of that. I'd be rich now.
Wow. I think I sold mine a few years ago and got nothing for them.
I did not expect the price to be anywhere near. I was like, holy crap.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone actually pays that price for them.
I don't know.
That's just it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you see those prices, and I don't know if anyone's actually buying the last issues of Gru for that. Like I said, I think I don't know which issues I still have, but I think I sold a bunch of them at the end of the run and got $1 a piece for them. This is like 4 years ago, whenever. Nobody wanted them.
Oh my goodness!
So maybe now,
if you have if you want a complete run, the last ones are probably should be the hardest to get, because They sold so few, and that's what got the book canceled.
But the problem is,
they had
wants a complete. Anybody who has wants a complete run has a complete run. Brew is not in demand at all. Yeah, exactly.
Got a complete run. So.
I used to have a complete run before I was like, you know what? I need to clear out some space. I'm never going to read these Brews again. So I sold some of them. I don't even know which ones. I think I sold
some Brew and then buying what Spider-Man number 347 or something.
Oh.
Yeah, no, sell the last few issues of Gru, buy Spider-Man 1, 2, 3 by 1, 2, and 3 by McFarlane.
Yeah,
that's just wrong, man. That's just wrong.
Then you slap them.
Yeah, you know what I bought yesterday? I bought some digital comics. Only because they're so cheap. You know what's weird?
You bought digital comics?
That's weird that I bought digital. I only it's like I only buy digital comics when they're really, really cheap. And even then it's like I hardly ever read them. I just like to have the legal copies of them somewhere.
Yeah, sometimes Amazon will have them like $0 and I'll look at them.
On Amazon, sometimes they have the Epic collections.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the soft covers that got about 20 issues in them, and they usually go for $25 to $40 depending on the collection. New.
Right.
For some reason, they often have the digital versions of those go for $4. Meanwhile, they have the digital versions of the Marvel Masterworks.
Mm-hmm.
For $15, which has 10 copies of it in it. So I ended up getting just on the spur of the moment spending $12 to get X-Men, giant size X-Men 1 up through X-Men 143 in 3 epic volumes for $4 a piece. I was like, you know what? I just kind of want the John Byrne, Dave Cockrum X-Men digital. Why not at $4 a piece?
I'll think with the giant size X-Men, they'd charge more for
it. Nope. Doesn't matter that it's giant. But it's like if you wanted to get the same stuff in the Masterworks digital version, which is the same thing, it would cost you $300. It's nuts. I'm like, why? I do not understand why they have them priced that way, but I'll take advantage of it. Hey, everybody else. Hey, Kermit, Animal, and Fozzie. Good day, Gus.
Well, so Jared's got to be Kermit because he's got green on.
It's not easy being green. But I actually want to get, but it's amazing how it can really add, $4 a piece is, that's the cost I spend on a comic.
Right.
A new comic. So to get digital version of 20 comics, all right.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like it can add up after a while because I then went and looked at stuff to see what was available.
Right.
And there was a whole bunch of I think 10 or 12 Captain America epic collections for $4 that I wanted. Because I wanted to get I basically wanted to get Captain America, 100 through the end of the Grunwald run. Which I'll get someday, but at $4 a piece, it's like, why not?
Yeah,
I don't know why those ones get so cheap, but I take advantage of it when I have an extra $4. So if you want to get some cheap digital comics, look for the Epic collections at Comixology or Amazon.
This is interesting because
thinking about essential collections.
The Epic collections, they had the first print run runs out easily.
Yeah.
They start going for silly prices on eBay.
Right.
And then you have to wait between 3 and 5 years to get any of them reprinted.
Yeah.
Same thing with Usagi Yojimbo.
Yeah.
If you don't get one the first time, you're going to wait. And even if you wait, you may miss it.
Spanish Kermit is called Gustavo.
Oh.
That's interesting. In Portugal, we call him Cockish.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's like, and I think the only digital comics I've bought have been Marvel ones, those Epic collect. Like I know a couple years ago I got the Jim Starlin Warlock as an Epic collection, just because I think that one was like $3. Sometimes they go on sale for like $2 or $1.
Yeah,
and I'm just like, all right.
that would be the Cloak and Dagger collection, right?
Nah.
Or Dazzler.
They haven't done Dazzler yet. There is one for Cloak and Dagger.
Yeah.
I was just trying to think the more obscure Marvel characters.
Well, there are a few that are not. They're not marketed as Epic collections, but they function as Epic collections in everything but name, which is the Man Wolf and the Deathlock, for example.
What's funny is anything that's not a Marvel Epic collection is anywhere from $10 to $15, the digital version. And I'm just like, all right, why would anyone buy those?
I wonder if it's a licensing thing.
Yeah, because they have those collected into volume. Like they'll have, like the Cloak and Dagger. They'll have a bunch of the Cloak and Dagger stuff and give it a title like Cloak and Dagger: The Origin or something like that. And that's $12. And you're like, well, I'll get the Epic collection for $4. It's the same thing. Listen, I can't believe that whether the Masterworks version should be $2 if the Epic collection is $4.
I wonder if there's some contractual thing where like
I don't know who prices it.
Whoever the initial print run has to fit within a certain price parameter.
Well, there's no print run; they're digital.
Well, fair enough. That's true.
And there's another thing. Even though the Masterworks started life as hardcovers, apart from being hardcover, there's nothing special about them when compared to Epic collections.
Right.
If they were oversized,
it's the same files. They're just hardcovers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Warlock was a complete collection, which is an Epic collection without the matching trade dress. Okay,
right.
That's one of the ones that went on sale.
Right, because you can't collect Warlock. You can't really collect Warlock as an Epic collection because you need the essentials were between 500 and 600 pages, but the epics don't really go over 500. And Warlock is about 620 pages if you include everything. So
aren't there two Marvel characters named Warlock?
Yeah, there's the techno-organic virus, right? The mutant techno-organic virus from the New Mutants.
Virus was the New Mutants. Was that it?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Let me see where it is on my
Kevich drew him.
Come on, where do we go? Okay, where is my library? Oh, I have Avengers versus Thanos. I think that's one of the Warlock ones. That might be that's not an Epic collection. Oh, that's Prime Reading, so that's not the one I bought. That's one I borrowed. Where's the Warlock one? Warlock. Yes, Warlock the Complete Collection. He's right. So but I know I got that one way back when for like $2. So it must have gone on sale. Then it's the X-Men are the 3 Epic collections, $4 a piece. So if you look, Tomb of Dracula, I got the first Tomb of Dracula also for $4 a while ago.
It's pretty good.
Sounds interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The Mighty Thor by Walt Simonsen I got for $4 a while ago.
Yeah, one thing that's interesting, Walt Simonsen's Thor and Frank Miller's Daredevil do not exist as Epic collections yet, and I have no idea when they will, because they usually market them as their own collections.
Yeah. Master of Kung Fu I also bought a little while, but they were probably like $3 to $4. Volumes 1 and 2 of the Epic collections digitally. I also got
volume 2.
I got 5 volumes of, I think they were like on Marvel Firsts. Marvel's First with superheroes, Marvel's First 60s, 70s, 3 in the 70s. And they were all like $1 or $2 a piece that I got. So
yeah, they were they were in the concept was interesting when it came out the first time, but it doesn't really have that much longevity.
No, and it's funny. I don't know,
Sure. I mean, if you want to read a collection of first appearances, and the reason there are a lot of them in the 70s is because they introduced a lot of characters in the 70s.
I want a epic collection of Secret 3000.
And
the one issue.
The one issue. You know, in 1998, they came up with a new miniseries, and I bought the reprint of the 70s story.
And what an epic collection is, it's one of Marvel came up with the concept, I don't know, about 10 years ago now. They wanted to reprint their vast library. So it's a trade paperback. It's got about 20 issues of a given series. But the idea was that they weren't being put out in order. So they could put out like in a 20-issue trade paperback, they can put out like the most popular stuff first and then build off of that. So you can put out the most popular issues of the X-Men first in the epic, because what always happens with series, as Eric Larson says, whenever anybody says to him, "Oh, you're going to put out hardcovers of the Savage Dragon?" He's like, "No, I know exactly what will happen. Everybody will buy the first volume, and by volume 5, nobody will be buying it." Mm-hmm. So Marvel, to get around that, puts out like, first they came out with, the new X-Men volume 2, the John Byrne. They figured out which volumes they figured out, like with Spider-Man, that Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man, I don't know, would be volume 10. And they put that out. And now they can put out all the other volumes over time and market them. So that's what the epic collections are. I think there's 20 issues in each. Yeah. And they usually run about $35 retail, depending on the stuff. And the complete collection is it's just another name. I guess it's just another name they used.
It's mostly used for runs that they don't have enough material to fill out an epic. Right. They're usually less than 400 pages, which is what happened with Deathlock, for example.
Right, because the epic collections are like for their big long series, multi-part series. Right. It's like they have no problem putting out like the complete Jim Starlin Adam Warlock or something like that. That's finite, and they can put it out in one book and market that. So that doesn't have to be an epic collection. They're trying to do epic collections that haven't been collected in a bunch, like Burns. But eventually, yeah, right. The whole idea was to do the popular stuff first. Good thing about Thor Simonsen is it won't be recolored because I've used original coloring.
So we're not going to get an epic by Simonsen. All the Willie Lumpkin stories.
It's by series. The epic collection.
Yeah. For example, Spider-Man's coming up as Amazing Spider-Man, but there's going to be actually they haven't done any collections for Spectacular Spider-Man yet.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Because then you run, but there will be a time when you run into the problem of the multi-part crossovers.
Yeah, well, I think the problem too is there are no popular issues of Spectacular Spider-Man. Really, that was always seen as a second-tier book.
But if you read them
and stuff, yeah.
The thing about the way, because the way that I read it, I don't see Spectacular as a secondary title, because they arranged the stories in order to either fit a chronology or have a one shot as a breather. Because it wasn't just Amazing. They ran Spectacular and Marvel Team Up.
Over here, there were people who were Amazing Spider-Man collectors and completely ignored Spectacular Spider-Man. They wanted nothing to do with it. I mean, it's just...
You could come up with the most obscure way of collecting anything, and somebody's all over
it. Well, that's not... Ignoring Spectacular Spider-Man is not obscure. That's pretty mainstream.
I'm just saying, if you came up with, I don't know, color reprints of, Boris the Bear... which there are. Somebody
crossovers. Okay, so the Epic Collections print the crossovers. That would make sense.
Mm-hmm. Although there was the Captain America volume, which features the Galactic Storm crossover. It skips the other ones, but the Avengers, because it's an Avengers-centric crossover, they can't afford to do that. They will have, if they do an Epic collection with the Avengers that features the Galactic Storm crossover, it will have to be an Epic collection with the entire crossover.
Huh.
Can you imagine?
There's not a Marvel Team Up Epic collection. I thought I saw something about one recently.
There are a few, yeah, and two-in-one as well.
$60 for a compilation of Atlantis attacks.
But the annuals crossovers aren't appearing in Epics, but they have their own omnibus collections.
And the Epics replaced the Essentials too. Mm-hmm. They stopped doing Essentials once they started doing the Epic collections.
But all the Essentials were black and white, weren't they?
Yeah, all the Essentials were black and white, and I think they
really cheap paper.
Kind of like the DC showcases, yeah.
Not that I minded that they were cheap. I mean, the idea that I could read a bunch of them for a low price,
right? That was interesting. Good. And it was stuff you hadn't seen reprinted a whole lot.
True.
Like the even the early Conan stuff wasn't reprinted that much until it came out in an Essential.
Still, that Essential Conan volume is still looked as a holy grail by Conan collectors because
it gives you a good look at the black and white artwork, which you don't get anywhere else.
But it was only for Conan the Barbarian for the color series. The problem there was that
I guess Ralph Reese didn't buy it, did
he? It came out just before Marvel lost the Conan license.
Right.
So that's what made it unique. Otherwise, it probably would have continued because I can see four volumes of Conan, Essential Conan coming out, no problem.
I was just thinking that bang for the buck, those Savage Sword of Conan reprints that Dark Horse did were pretty good.
Oh, the Dark Horse Savage Sword of Conan I did not like because they were shrunken down. And if those were
to your point there, I'd rather have it full size.
Yeah. I mean, if those trade paperbacks were black and white, they were probably the Essential ones. DC seems perfect at the confusing way of making stories. Yeah, DC doesn't have an epic collections. I don't know why they didn't jump on that. That only collects that crossover, but there's 0 Marvel Team-Up epics. Only Amazing Spider-Man so far. Okay.
That's right. There's one Marvel 2-in-1 which came out in 2018. Nothing since then, but there's no Marvel Team-Ups, and that doesn't make any sense.
I actually prefer the way DC does it. They do complete, runs instead of the best ofs.
But DC doesn't have DC started doing showcases because of the Essential success. Right. But when Marvel started doing epics, they haven't come up with an equivalent. So I think DC is missing out here.
That's a lot of epic collections and complete collections.
I'd rather buy absolute editions myself, but that's just me. I'm weird that way.
Well, the absolute editions are good, but they're big and expensive.
That's why. I like the.
They can't put those out for everything.
They could. They just lose their shirt.
Yeah. DC doesn't finish their lines. Drives me nuts. Yeah, I have heard that from them. They you have so many trade paperbacks and then they just stop. So like, well, we're not making any money with this, so it's over.
I wish I'd have got those Spirit hardcovers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's funny. I can remember when they first came out. The DC archives you're talking about, right? The Spirit ones. I was like, oh, cool, because I have collected the black and white Spirit kitchen sink ones, and I've got a lot of them. I don't have the whole series, but I've got 80% of the series at least. Yeah. I think that series lasted nearly 100 issues. So I was like, I remember doing the calculations when they first said that those Spirits were being released in hardcover for DC.
How long it would take? Yeah.
Well, not even how long it would take, how much it would cost, how much space it would take up.
Yeah.
So I said to myself, it was 26 volumes.
Yeah.
$50 a volume. So I went, do I really want to pay $1,200 and it take up 26 inches of shelf space? And I went, no, I can do, because I already have the Spirit taking up that much shelf space. I'm like, you know what? I don't read the Spirit often enough to put that much more money and shelf space into.
I saw something yesterday that's even bigger and more costly. I don't remember what company it is, but they're going to reprint Terry and the Pirates in a format, and it's going to be expensive.
I have those ones. The ones they reprinted.
These are even newer.
Even newer ones? Wow.
Yeah.
Even newer, more expensive ones than who printed those ones?
IDW?
IDW, yeah. I still haven't finished reading them all either.
But I saw one of the options, you could get a subscription to all of them, and it was a pretty significant discount, and even discounted, the subscription was almost $900.
I have more Swamp Thing Absolutes, would have preferred original colors. Yeah, but I do have those Swamp Things in trades with the singles, that John Wood colors. Yeah, I still have my original Swamp Things. I think I have I was missing like the very first Alan Moore issue, so I got the original trade when it came out. But yeah, recoloring is it's kind of just the way of the world, and it's a crapshoot. It's a complete and utter crapshoot.
Recoloring, I saw where Humanoids is going to release the Inkle in black and white.
Yeah. Okay.
I thought that's interesting. I don't know if I want to pay, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, but it'd be interesting to compare it. Yeah.
Have you seen the J.H. Williams book, Echo Lands?
The one that's formatted
widescreen? Yeah.
I've seen the videos that Terrence and Damien have done.
Well, they put out a black and white version of it too the following month. I just think the color version's so much better.
Gotcha.
Look at the black and white version going, ain't that great? Well, I don't know why they're doing it, because the color really brings together the art in that book.
Okay.
When you were just used to seeing the digital original color for decades. To me, it's not that the new color is off; it's that sometimes it's just worse.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some newer recolors that I thought looked better than the originals, and conversely, I've seen some a lot worse too.
Right, I've seen it go
both ways. The coloring,
I mean, if you've seen like the Dark Horse coloring of the original Marvel Conan was atrocious. I got the first 2 hardcover books of that years ago and sold them off because the coloring was just bad. Yeah. I forget that you can find a page on the internet. I forget where some guy compares the old and new coloring, and it's just bad. The Inkle recoloring is ridiculous. I've only seen. I've got it when it was published by Epic Comics.
There's more than one recolored version. I just wondered which.
I don't know which. I never saw anything wrong with that. I don't remember anything wrong with the coloring on the Marvel Epic versions, but
I don't have a problem with the Inkle recoloring, although, there's that thing where there's that thing about modernizing something that originally came out with some technological restrictions, and then you redo them just to get around them. I realize, but some people don't like it. Yeah. Now, the thing about European comics is that because everything, the materials are usually better quality than contemporary American stories, they're already pretty well done, even with technological restrictions. So adding technology, it's kind of like a remix.
Yeah, that's true.
It is. I'm saying the Steve Olive colors on Swamp Thing are good. They just if you know the colors real well, I can see how they look. It's like I don't know I don't know that there's any series that I know the colors real well on. But if there's something like that Conan, even though I don't know the colors real well, I know the new colors are bad.
I know the Batman black and white colors real well.
That's right, yeah. Brian Boland recolored The Killing Joke to get it more like he wanted it.
I saw a video just a couple weeks ago where the trade version of Rusty and Big Guy and Rusty was recolored. And one of the versions looked a lot better than the other. The other one did.
We've talked about Big Bang comics on here before, haven't we? Those are the ones from the early 90s.
Yeah, with the DC pastiches.
That was a DC one. I thought they were Image. I thought
they were Image, but the characters are supposed to be there as the Justice League.
Ah, okay. I think I only read 1 or 2 issues of them. Yeah. There's people who are always going to like the original color better. I think a lot of older comics might be revivable if they're recolored. Yeah, that's it too. A lot of times they think the color isn't sellable in this day and age. Well, a lot of times also they have to recolor them no matter what, because the technology that doesn't exist anymore to use the color that was around in the 70s and 80s. It just doesn't. So they have to recolor them anyway.
Mm-hmm. And that adds a cost.
Bright yellow, I'm all for it.
Right, and if they're recoloring it anyway, they're like, well, we may as well make it look more modern, even though
it really just depends on the colorist.
Yeah, finally got Usagi's special edition. I had all the Saga books from Dark Horse, but never had Fantagraphic stuff. His art was great. Yeah, I've been reading Usagi since '86, and I've enjoyed it all.
You can see some gold and silver. Yeah, you can see some change over the years, but yeah, he's right. He was good right off the bat.
Yeah. Well, he had actually been around doing comics for years, just nothing we ever saw. He was a letterer, amongst other things.
Going to comic strips instead of books, but the one artist that, to me, that was just, fully formed right off the bat was Hal Foster.
Yeah. But he probably was assisting people over the years too. You don't get a big job like was he doing Tarzan for a while? He was probably someone's assistant.
Yeah, he did Tarzan before he did Prince Bam, but I don't know if he assisted other people.
Recolor, made all comics more woke. Old comics were woke. Stan Lee was the biggest preacher around. I always find that funny when people talk about woke. Did you not read Marvel in the 60s?
This woke thing's got to go. It's like, were the rest of you just asleep?
I don't get that. I'm just like,
people now are bitching about Star Trek was woke. Well, yeah, that was the most woke series ever done.
Did you not notice that it took the rest? It took the rest of the world 40 years to catch up with Black Panther. One thing that still baffles me is the fact that Red Sonja has a separate comic rights from Conan.
Most of the Robert E. Howard characters have separate rights.
The thing is, if I could argue that the Robert E. Howard estate has no rights to Red Sonja.
No.
Because
it's made by Howard Thomas.
Yeah.
Old woke is the same thing as modern woke. If you were an old man back in '65 reading Stan Lee, you would be like, I don't need this woke stuff in my comics.
No, the thing is, I'm pretty sure that people doing woke in comics nowadays are intellectually deficient compared to.
That's the same stuff.
I don't know about that.
This people just trying to. This people.
No, they're very nowadays they're very, very superficial.
What was that?
The current writers at mainstream companies are very superficial interests.
So was Stan Lee.
Make very, but there's expectations now.
I know, but for every woke Stan Lee comic, there was the Invisible Woman, all his female characters were fit 1950s stereotypes. But anyway, speaking of Red Sonja, I found this recently. sometimes it's like Raiders of the Lost Ark in my collection. This was just misfiled, and I was looking at something else, and I was like, oh, because I have a few comics in my collection. If I misfile something, it's like Raiders of the Lost Ark.
It's like that giant warehouse and all.
Yeah, it's like, and I was looking through, and this probably used to be right next to something that was ended with R. I forget what the comic was I found next to it. And then when I moved them, because I move my comics every now and then for spatial reasons, and this one showed up at the back of a bunch of another R series, and I went, oh, look at that. That was missing, and I didn't even know it. But that has happened to me. It's like my Usagi Yojimbo #1 has been missing for years. I just don't know what happened to it. It's probably somewhere in here, but it's not it's not next to Usagi Yojimbo #2. Somehow it got moved to someplace else, and I have no idea where that someplace else is. Early issues of Gru art look rough compared to how Sergio has developed over the years, but I was surprised how fully formed Stan's work was. That Gru had a cameo.
Yeah, they both developed over the years, but there's a bigger change in Gru than there's been in Usagi in terms of the line quality.
Yeah. And Red Sonja is just so far from. I mean, she goes every time and every place now. They've had Red Sonja everywhere. She
wait a minute.
Teams up with everyone.
Time and universe is Conan. Does that mean she's going to show up in the Avengers now?
The thing is, you have to stop thinking of universes when you think of these characters. These stories are always limited by commercial licensing. So thinking of universes doesn't make any sense. They publish the stories with the characters that they have available with the rights that they license to each publisher. So the universe concept doesn't enter here.
I think the key word here is think. They should do more of it.
Yeah.
My wireless speaker has to be wired now, and I just knocked it down. hit into the wire. Yeah. Yeah, the last Red Sonja story I read was that everybody crossover, and she was in space. It's like Red Sonja just gets around now. Paolo on fire. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, but here's the thing. One of the writers that people say is the best writer ever is Donny Cates. Donny Cates is not a very good writer. If Donny Cates is considered the best writer that Marvel has right now, I consider him to be on par with a fill-in written by Al Milgrom.
Yeah, and I have to say,
I don't even know who's working at it.
Political stuff was always there, but I don't know if it done.
Go read Sandy's Daredevil. It's nothing but political.
There was always political stuff in there, but I notice all the people complaining about Marvel being too woke and political don't actually read Marvel. Neither do I. Right. So it's kind of like, I don't care what they do.
But it's not a question of being political. It's a question of being intelligent and interested in what you're writing. And those guys are not intelligent. They're not well read. They don't investigate anything. They don't have any natural curiosity. They are idiots. And I don't think that Marvel benefits from having them write stories.
Tony Isabella has a very good quote. Said, "Hell."
But Tony Isabella is a complete idiot as well. People have to stop thinking that Tony Isabella was a good writer. He never was. Never.
I always liked MODOK, but I think my favorite Kirby design villain is Armin Zola. I just love it. He put his head in his chest to protect his brain. I don't know. I love that for some reason. You gotta get a big face.
You didn't like it's not a Marvel character, but you didn't like the fighting fetus?
No. Right. The fighting fetus. Yeah, I think I have one of those. Do I have MODOK? One of those. One of my favorite Treasury editions from when I was a kid was the because I'm a Sal Buscema era Hulk guy. So like Trimpe was the old Hulk guy to me. So like when I'd get a Trimpe issue, I was like, "Oh, this is old," and I preferred Sal Buscema to Trimpe. I was like I said, that's when I first started buying it when Sal Buscema took over. But it was like the Treasury edition that had the Harpy story in it, drawn by Trimpe, was just one of my favorite comics as a kid. That was my favorite Trimpy stuff. I think I still have the Treasury edition, but I don't think I ever got the original issues it was from. But when Betty Ross got turned into the Harpy and fought the Hulk.
I don't even know that one.
And I think it was also because Herb Trimpe drew her naked for a few pages too, covered by strategically placed machinery.
Yeah. Speaking of some older stuff, I saw two. I think they were done in the past couple years or so. Two animated shorts that were done by DC. They were called Showcases. One was for Adam Strange, and the other one's for Sergeant Rock. They were both god awful. They were just terrible. The animation was okay, but the stories were just, ew. It's like, guys, you need to go back and redo these.
Betty is currently Red Harpy. Wow, seriously, I think he's kind of the best writer. Everybody seems to like that stuff. Sal Buscema is my Hulk artist too. I appreciate his art much more now than I did as a kid. I always liked him as a kid, but he wasn't a favorite. But he was the Hulk guy, and Hulk was my favorite. My first Hulk issue was one with Rocket Raccoon. Yeah, My first Hulk issue was Hulk 200. That's where I started collecting it.
My first Hulk issue was the one where he swims to an island and fights the Absorbing Man there.
Ah, the Absorbing Man they always got him to accidentally touch glass, and then they shattered him.
Yeah, just for the purpose of making a commercial, the Absorbing Man's got to have a kid named the Absorbing Man Jr.
Yeah, DC, the problem is different. There's a creative problem there because they insist on having universe-shattering events, and now they're shattering multiverses because universes are too small.
Yeah, they're not threatening enough.
Yeah, so they're shattering multiverses so that they can reboot again, and then whatever.
We got the final part in Usagi Yojimbo. Speaking of stuff I'm reading. Always good. I mentioned it before. So this is, what are we up to here? Issue 24 of the Color Usagi Yojimbo. And this is part 3 of Ransom, where these characters who are thieves were back. But, I show Usagi, twice a month now with the reprint and the regular one. And it's just always good. It's tough to find new superlatives with Usagi because it's only A and A plus Usagi. Treasury edition number 26, Best Brigitte Bardot. That's one. Okay. I have it somewhere on my shelf still. I'm going to go look it up. And another comic I bought this. Here's a comic I bought. Remember last week when I was showing you The Great Gatsby number 2? Mm-hmm. And I said it looked like the cover was printed at 72 DPI. It was just so crappy. Yeah, well, that cover annoyed me so much all week that I wasted $6 getting the special edition gold foil cover of the same book. But just because I was gritting my teeth every time I thought about this, and this is even a pretty lousy cover too. I mean, at least it's not printed at 72 DPI, but they just took the final page of a bunch of people looking at a crashed car and put it inside the gold foil border. I'm like, you didn't even come up with a new cover?
Right.
But I wasted $6 on this just so I wouldn't grit my teeth at that badly printed cover again. But it's just the last page. And if you've read The Great Gatsby story, it's just at the end of one of the parties, a guy ran his car off the edge of the driveway, and that's all and it's like, come on.
What was the cost of the first book?
$4.
So you spent $10 total.
Yeah, I spent $10 total. That's how big a Gatsby fan.
It's still stuck in the back of your mind.
It's still annoying. See, I didn't think this one was going to annoy me until I got it home and realized that but it's not as annoying as the other one, so that's good. They printed it at 72 DPI one.
Yeah, you'll have to cut those up and make cards out of them.
Yeah, I read stuff based on creators too. Do some Great Gatsby Magic the Gathering cards. I'm gonna have to do that now. A new marketing strategy: make low res comics, then sell the high res one just to make more.
Yeah.
Those were called Gold Key back.
Put out the crappy version first. Then, if you want to really see the art, here's a good version of it.
No, we're make it a 1 in 25 variant, and you have to buy 25 low resolution covers.
No, you can make a digital variant called an NVT, which is non-visible token.
Speaking of variants, I for Bad Idea Comics, I got out. I had to get out 4 comics this week before Thanksgiving, and 2. There was a little who's on first action going on with this, because 2 of the comics didn't have prices on them. And I was like, and I'm the person who I have to type in the price in the UPC. That's what I'm doing in the production, getting them ready. And I'm like, well, what's the price on them? Oh, there's no price on them. I'm like, yes, I know there's no price on them. I need the price. But anyway, it turns out that there's no price on them because I had to put on first printing. They're pin redemption comics. And that was I didn't even know. And once again, there was a little who's on first moment with my LCS owner, because I was trying what are pin redemption comics?
Hmm.
And it turns out what they are is for the first issues of 2 other Bad Idea comics for I forget which, for Pirate Queen and maybe Monster Kill Squad, they sent each comic shop 1 pin. And they were supposed to give that pin to the first person to buy Monster Kill Squad or Pirate Queen #1. Now the people who have those pins can mail them in and get sent these 2 comics, Werewolf and what's the other one? Retirement Plan, for free. And I was like, that's the weirdest promotion I've ever heard of.
Mm-hmm. Especially because if I'm the shop owner, I'll keep the pins to myself, mail the pins to the publisher, and sell those exclusive comics for high prices.
I think they may not have told them what the pins were at the beginning, maybe. That's all I can think of. I think DC needs to do a reboot again and do it the New 52.
No. Enough reboots. Enough universe-shattering events. Enough multiverse-shattering events. Just do normal stories with the characters in their natural setting.
And the problem with reboots is, and it's always the same, if you're in the company and are powerful enough to say we need a reboot and actually do a reboot, like with New 52, in order for a reboot to work, you need continuity cops to keep everything straight. And the guy who's powerful enough to call the reboot does not want to be a continuity cop. And what always happens is the writers then subvert the reboot, because they didn't want the reboot in the first place. And that's just the natural inclination of the writer. When there's some huge authoritarian thing that comes down, they want to subvert it. And
the editors had done their jobs all along. None of this would have ever happened.
The editors don't want to be continuity cops either. That's how we got into this place. So that's why reboots never have and never will work. Because in order for reboots to work, you have to have continuity. And at times, somebody like Peter Sanderson has worked for both Marvel and DC as sort of a continuity cop.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a position that's low level, and they don't really listen to you. It's kind of they only listen.
Yeah, there's no point in having a continuity expert if they don't listen to you. That's the whole point of it.
But it's just kind of
Star Trek proved that too many times.
Yeah, unless you get promoted to executive editor, and you like being a continuity cop, which is what Grunwald used to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not as discerning with Bronze and Carful Age, Marvel, and DC. I would get most of the collections from the 70s. Yeah, I think a lot of that's nostalgia. I mean, I have gotten collections from the 70s and 80s that I just don't even bother to read. I just look through them. I read the good stuff, but sometimes it's, there's a lot of not so good stuff from the 70s and 80s. Well, you don't mind taking them, Mark. Yeah. He wants floppies to go away. Follow my trade paperback, right? My LCS hasn't gotten any Bad Idea comics. I've loved to read them, but they're so well. What did it? Bad Idea's whole idea was they took a weakness and turned it into a strength kind of thing, because they were like, you know what? Why bother trying to sell our comics in comic shops that aren't going to bother with us? So they picked like 300 comic shops that would actually sell their comics. And they're like, we're only selling in these 300 comic shops or whatever it is. Luckily, my local one is one of them. So otherwise, I wouldn't even get the issues I work on. No more reboots, exactly. Reboots work only when they're a reboot of a reboot. Reboots never work because no one wants to be the continuity cop. If it's a story, yeah. I mean, I think the Hulk proved that. Just so fatigued. I don't read anything Marvel or DC. I have not read anything Marvel and DC in. Well, I gave up Marvel and DC most. I've been an indie guy since the 80s, and I've got plenty of comics to read. Bad Idea. So far, there's no plans to do collected editions. Floppies will stay. They'll become follow-up sale proven demand. Yeah, I remember one. I think this is kind of coming true. One of the guys, John Babcock, he used to work with me in the bullpen. He was a letterer. And I can remember him predicting that one day comics will be like poetry. There'll be really small print runs selling to a really select group of people. I'm like, I think we're just about there. Even the big boys, Marvel and DC, don't have a ton of sales. I mean, are the sales really that much bigger than a poetry journal for most comics? I don't think so.
Oh, God, they're not going to bring back Street Poet Ray, are they?
That's what they'll do.
Please don't. No, we can't take another round of that.
Oh. And here's a comic that I got that I don't know exactly where it came from, and it was just okay. Friday. And it says local comic shop day. I don't know if you found this in the back or because I don't think it's local comic shop day. Let me see. What year did this come out?
It was local comic shop day. They would have named it Wednesday, wouldn't they?
November 2021. This is from this week. Then it's Brubaker and Marcos Martin. I think you say his last. I think he's a Martin, not a Martin. I've heard it said Marcos Martin. And it was
Robinson Crusoe's Friday, or
it was. I think it was more young adult, and it reminded me of. Do you remember? Did you ever read the Encyclopedia Brown books when you were a kid?
Yep, sure did.
Encyclopedia Brown was a boy detective.
Yeah.
Well, this is about a girl coming back from college to her old hometown and hanging out with her old best friend, who is Encyclopedia Brown, but not really. Gotcha. And he is solving a mystery. And the reason I say it's young adult is because he's, I guess they're supposed to be 18 or 19 in this. And the Encyclopedia Brown character is kind of the lead detective on this case that the local sheriff is like following around. So it's not,
the kids always made the cops look like idiots.
Yeah. So the cop is just like a background character even. Right. So it's kind of like, it reminded me of something like Encyclopedia Brown. It was okay.
Now that you bring it up, some of the kids' book series, now obviously there were Nancy Drew adaptations and Hardy Boys adaptations, but some of the other characters, like you just mentioned, like Encyclopedia Brown, would have made for some decent comics. So I don't think they ever.
I always liked the regular books as a kid. Yeah, I thought it was originally a web comic thing. It was like one of these pay as you want web comics or something from I've been seeing those here and there. It's Brubaker's tribute. Oh, it actually is. Wow. Okay.
Cool.
But it's more about the girl who comes back into town, who's not, who used to be a sidekick and is not really anymore. Yeah. I definitely got an Encyclopedia Brown vibe from it. So it's interesting to hear it's actually his tribute to it. Huh. Red Baron and Bear's Tooth from Cinebook, Pala. Ever read one of those?
No.
Mm-hmm.
Is Red Baron actually about the Red Baron?
Yeah, there's so much material readily available now that any dissatisfaction with current Marvel DC comics is inconsequential to me as a reader. Right, me too. I hear people. I think people just like to complain about Marvel and DC. I think that's just it because there's so many good comics out there now and old ones. Omni DC look to unify all their titles under a large override. Yeah, that's what Paolo was complaining about with DC. Too many crossovers and omniverses and multiverses. And
I was just thinking, if I was a writer that had the clout of somebody like Alan Moore or Neil Gaiman, they asked me to do a story, I would put in my contract that you cannot legally make me partake in any of your big crossover events. I get to write what I want to write, and the hell with you guys.
I think some have done that before, but most don't have the clout and just go, crossover.
I don't think
interrupting my story.
Yeah.
Let's see, what else did I get? Serial from Terry Moore, always good. Our little girl who's really an ancient demon hunting down a serial killer. Terry Moore is just such a terrific cartoonist. I think there's only 2 more issues left of this. He's been doing 10-issue series, and it seems like the story's coming to an end.
Okay.
Because our serial killer seems like she's about to be caught. And will she be caught by the cops before she's caught by this little girl who's really a demon who the serial killer killed her friend? You feel some sympathy for the serial killer because she's killing abusers. But she also killed the wife of an abuser who was her friend just because she thought... I think crossovers went on steroids during the New 50s. Yeah, well, like I said, crossovers is the one arrow in their quiver. They know if they make a big event crossover, it'll sell. People buy that. As much as everybody complains about them, they're the best sellers every year. So they're going to keep doing them.
PT right.
Yeah, there are people saying stuff that this to me is a very strange behavior. The notion that you want your comic to matter. Well, the comic matters because you were attracted to it and you liked the story, not because of its relation in continuity to other comics.
Yeah, I never understood that mindset either.
If the story's bad, who cares where it is in continuity?
Yeah, right.
It's bad story. Don't read it.
But they're the ones left buying comics. the people who want their comics to matter. So they get those crossovers.
Can't argue that.
I just now started reading Terry Moore. Just the Rachel Rising. Yeah.
I haven't read
Rachel Rising is terrific. Echo is terrific. Strangers in Paradise was where he first came to. But Strangers in Paradise is more like a traditional comic and is more about relationships than plot. His stuff since then, he's had more plot. That's still about relationships, but is more about. But like Strangers in Paradise is really about the relationships and interactions between the comics. The other stuff has more plot in it than that does.
That's interesting. I may have to pick up some of the newer stuff, though.
Crossovers sell more. Yeah, that's one of the reasons. Another reason is people like as much as crossovers get complained about as much. It's like, in the 80s, Michael Jackson was always voted most popular singer and least popular singer. Because when you're that popular, a lot of people don't like you. And that's the same thing, I think, with crossovers. As they're the most popular things, so they got a lot of stuff, a lot of crossovers get made, but doesn't mean everyone likes them. Yeah, I want to read Strangers in Paradise and Echo as well. I like everything Terry Moore is one of those automatic pull lists for me. Any new series he gets just automatically goes on my pull list. Don't even think about it. It'll be good. Then I'm always interested to see the print runs because he now puts the print runs on each issue of Cerebus and Hell is individually numbered.
Was he doing a League of Extraordinary Gentlemen parody there?
Yes, and this one is 780 of 1954, which means that League of Extraordinary Gentlemen is not that popular. So I think the last issue, which had a this Superman cover, the Neil Adams Superman versus Spider-Man cover, had like 2,500 copies. And I think I'm tired of the first 2 issues of his coronavirus jokes I was okay with. Now we're on to issue 3 of him doing coronavirus jokes.
Yeah.
And he's run out of material. I was not a huge fan of this issue. But that happens sometimes, with this Cerebus stuff. It's all comic strips. It's all jokes. So that is a pretty cool cover. I did a nice job with it. But like I said, the print run of that goes up or down strictly on how popular a cover he's parodying is. I find that amazing. Red Sonja, best when she appeared in Cerebus. Oh, that's right. Huh. Sonja, Sonja, Sonja. Was that red nails when they were pounding on the table and yelling that as she danced? What issue was that?
I don't think so.
Later
Could be wrong.
Just Order the Strain Dance. Yeah. I like I said, I read I read it when Dave Sim was running it in Glamour Puss, and it's really good. If you like comic history, it's really good because he was the minutia of comics history he was going through around Alex Raymond's death was interesting to me. I just thought he did a good job with it. At least half of Glamour Puss was really good. Half of it was just because half of it was the strange death of Alex Raymond, and half of it was
everything else.
Sim practicing drawing and making comedy about women's magazines, and it was not very funny. If you've ever read any critique of a woman's magazine, it was the same. Sim had no different take on it.
Right.
He changed it quite a bit from the Glamour Puss backups, from what I've read. Well, the Glamour Puss backups, I don't see why he'd have to change it. I know he added a lot more, and the other guy drew it, but I don't think he'd have to change the beginning part, whatever it was. But maybe he added more stuff to it. I don't know. I'm going to be getting it eventually. Dave Sim seems like he no longer knows how to tell the story. Now, I like his comic strips in general.
But
they're all custom made
sometimes. Yeah.
I think he's still a good writer and can write decent jokes in Cerebus. I think you read them on the web too.
Yeah.
But some issues are like he did a whole issue making fun of Canadian politics. Not my favorite issue because I didn't know what the hell was going on in Canadian politics.
Yeah, and if you gotta, I hate to say this, but American audiences are not very politically savvy about anything outside of America.
Well, why would they be? Why would local Canadian politics be of any interest to anyone outside of Canada? You say that like the Australians know all about, Italian politics. They don't.
They know a hell of a lot more than the average American.
No, they don't. They don't know what. I get you. Your average Australian knows nothing about Italian politics. Knows no more than your average American. Matter of fact,
what we have in Europe is that because there's a lot more interaction between countries, anything that affects more than one country is known. Yeah. But we have no idea what's going on with the mayor of Verona.
Yeah. And people pay attention to American politics because it affects the world. But Americans don't pay attention. I mean, Americans don't know what's going on in Mexico.
Americans don't know what's going on in America.
Yeah, but there's that too. But I don't think most people do. I always hear Americans criticizing other Americans. I'm like, what do you think the rest of the world is with? Do you think the rest of the world is these enlightened beings who haven't you noticed the war and poverty and all sorts of stuff going on all over the world too? Huh?
Parts of the world, yes, not all of it.
Every country is 90% stupid people.
Yeah.
Then there's me.
And then it goes to 91.
Yes. I like 80% of the people and consider myself above average.
Lake Wobegon syndrome. All art made to satisfy global as far as yeah. Well, it depends if you're selling 1 million copies of it.
Unless you're Mr. Bean.
I was never a Mr. Bean fan.
He's the most popular character around the world, period.
Yeah, because you don't have to translate it.
That's true. Yeah.
You can just bring it everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
The first half is Cerebus up until those last 2 volumes when he was interpreting scripture, I really liked. And someday I want to go back and read those last issues. Then I got better things to do.
Yeah, that's true too.
So Scott, Americans know what's happening in America. We just can't understand what's happening. Yeah, there's some.
If they knew what was happening, that would mean they would make an effort to understand it.
Here was a really interesting comic this week. Radiant Black. And it was interesting because of the artwork. He went into this. I could only compare it to Steve Ditko's Doctor Strange when he went into like Dormammu's lair. How Steve Ditko created this whole visual language with that, and he's doing it a completely different way. He's doing it with shapes and colors, and it was really well done. And lots of like sort of Tron. It's more Tron-like than Ditko-like, but the same sort
Tron
of
and lava. Yeah.
But like I said, he really did a lot of it with color, and it was just a nice change of pace story where he's trying to save his friend by having to go into this weird realm. I thought it's the best visualized weird realm I've seen in a while. All of a sudden, we went to these high color contrast pages. And like I said, most of it was done with color.
It's like a Italian sword and sandal movie, but better. They'll go to hell to rescue somebody, and then the whole landscape's just badly lit.
But I have to say, I really enjoy because I've seen a lot of guys copy Ditko. There may be a little of that in here, because how could it not be? But mostly it was more original than that. So I really enjoyed it. Like I said, a lot of it was done with color. So it was good stuff.
You know, the one person I've seen that's done Doctor Strange in that motif where he took from Ditko, but I think he actually did it better than Ditko did. God, don't hate me for that. Was Craig Russell.
Oh, yeah, he did a good job. He's kind of got his own thing, but I don't think he did it better than Ditko. Yeah, I have never. Oh, is Higgins I've never read any of Higgins stuff. I've never seen any of these guys before. Who does it? Kyle Higgins, Marcelo Costa, Igor Monti is the colorist on this one, and Becca Carey is the letterer. But he said at the beginning, this is influenced by Power Rangers too. So that would make sense if he was the Power Rangers writer, that this would be influenced by Power Rangers. So I guess this is the Power Rangers story that he can't do with the actual Power Rangers.
Maybe he can bring back the Shogun Warriors.
More Herb Trimpe. That was the Herb Trimpe era I was not very fond of. Shogun Warriors, Godzilla, the toy, the licensed.
I bought both of those back in the day.
Those go for pretty good money.
The only toy licenses they published over here was ROM and Micronauts. They didn't publish the other ones.
What are the toy licenses? They had, let's see, it was ROM, Godzilla, Micronauts, Shogun Warriors.
How many issues was Shogun Warriors? Not a lot, right?
Yeah, we're talking before they got the rights to G.I. Joe and Transformers.
Right.
So that
was farther down the line.
Well, Godzilla lasted a little while.
Yeah, that's true.
It was like
because
20
the rest
issues,
of
right?
Yeah, 24.
Wasn't there a toy line called Mask?
Oh yeah, Mask.
There was.
Periods.
It was. Yeah, but
Right.
But there was a 4-issue mini. It was published by DC.
Okay.
They also published a Centurions comic.
I remember buying Godzilla and being annoyed that he was beating up on all the superheroes. Like, oh, come on. It's a big lizard. They can't take him out?
Like a big damn lizard. That's why.
With nuclear breath.
They've taken out big lizards and robots before, and like takes them like a quarter of an issue. Huh. It's taken me 40 plus years of reading comics to get into Ditko, but I really loved the Doctor Strange Epic Collection, Volume 1 recently. Because I was worn, his gray skin. I really love. I have the Fireside Doctor Strange book from the 70s, and that's just my favorite printing of all the Ditko stuff. Because it's got all the old color in it, but it's printed on a little bit better paper, and so the sort of the dark murkiness of the Ditko coloring at the time really shines in that volume. Right. It's really good. That just reminded me. I wanted to say we're talking about how they have to recolor stuff. Mm-hmm. In the early 2000s, when I was still at Marvel, when they were trying to figure out how to reprint all their old stuff, because they didn't want to have to recolor everything. And keep in mind, they had a warehouse. They had a warehouse with decades worth of old film in it. Mm-hmm. Old film, which now, they don't use to make printing plates anymore, but that's what they archived, of course, because that's what you did. You'd pull the old film out and you'd make the new printing plates from it and print in a new version. Right. So they found a company that would scan in all the old film. And they were doing that for, 6 months, scanning in all their old films so they could throw it away, and Ike could shut down the warehouse because he didn't want to pay for it in Arizona. And if you look at older stuff that was reprint, but they ended up not liking it because it was a difficult process. Sometimes there was a lot of cleanup to it, because sometimes that old film wasn't in good shape. So you had to spend as much time cleaning up the old film in Photoshop as hiring some cheap company to color it.
Yeah.
But if you look at stuff from that period, old stuff that was reprinted from the old film, all the dots are very prominent because, everything is still published, screened but the dots are really, really tiny. You have to look at them with a magnifying glass to see the dots. Unlike comics from the 60s where you can see them with your naked eye. So it was like, it was weird to see things published in like 2002 with the original coloring from, 1968, except now the dots are able to be printed completely sharply on white paper. So it was always weird to see stuff, and not a lot of stuff was printed that way. But when I see stuff from that era, I'm like,
Were they using Baxter paper then?
No, they were using by the early 2000s. Everything was white paper.
Okay, so early 2000s. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, this is the early 2000s stuff.
All right.
Epic Collections used the original color, but that's all recolored as the original colorings. It all depends on what is edited by Corey Settlemeyer or not. Corey Settlemeyer he came on board at Marvel in the early 2000s, and he became the reprint. He became the Marvel Masterworks editor, but he really liked the job. It used to be if you were the trade paperback guy, you didn't want that job. And if you were the reprint guy, you didn't want that job because you didn't get to make any new comics. It's the people who have success making the new comics who move up in the hierarchy.
And may actually make money doing it. Yeah.
If you're the guy making the Marvel Masterworks, but that's actually what Corey liked to do. But he left staff in like 2006, but they hired him freelance to still edit the stuff. And he was always the one who made sure that the comics the coloring was exactly like the old coloring. He used to actually get a loop out and look at the old comics to try and figure out exactly what dots were there and exactly what colors were there. He was the one who put the mistakes back into the comics, like early issue of Spider-Man where Doc Ock called him Superman. And then they corrected it in the 60s. He uncorrected it because he wanted it to print exactly like it printed originally. So, and still to this day, if something's edited by Corey, all the colors are exactly as they were. But if something's edited by somebody else that Corey never had his hands on, you're taking your chances with the coloring being the original.
Was Corey part of the Marvel Masterworks fan site group of people?
They used to call him Folk Hero Corey, and occasionally he'd come on and give them news.
Because what I liked about that site is that there were people who, I think those people are consulting on the Epic collections, because they came up with all the listings necessary to make collections.
They put together their own Epic collections, I think probably before Marvel did. I'm sure they looked at them and they're like, Neil Adams ruins it. Yeah,
the hardcore fans do those things better than some of those guys work.
Well, also, you know, people at Marvel are basically busy getting books out. So it's like,
who needs a continuity copy if you have nerds on a message board?
I think that's what they are, really.
He recolored, and I think he re-inked some of the George Russo stuff too, from like Dead Man.
Maybe.
That, like I said, that's all Corey Settlemeyer, remastering them but keeping the color. That's all him. Probably mute the colors a bit too from the new. You know what it is? The epics from the Masterworks. Yeah, the epics come from the Masterworks if files available, right? That, and Corey does all the files in the Masterworks. But here's where it fell down on the job. The Deathlock Masterworks. The only play, if you go back and look at the old the original Deathlock series with Buckler, and I forget who, I think Buckler may have colored some of it, and Klaus Janson too. And they were doing something I'd never seen before in that series. If you go back and look, and especially as the issues get old, it's really obvious. You have like very limited color palette, of course, back then. You only had a certain amount of colors. And Deathlock was supposed to be a zombie. He was a dead body that was reanimated. So what they did, and usually flesh was always, Caucasian flesh was always Y20M20. That was the 20% magenta, 20% yellow. That was the code for it. What they did to Deathlock was they made his skin at times a very light purple. And that purple would mix visually with sort of the yellowness, the off-whiteness of the paper, and make it gray. Because yellow and purple, they're complements. So when you mix them together, they make like a muddy color. So that little bit, and if you want to take a color and make it like gray and sit back in space, they call it, you add a tiny bit of the complement to that color. So if you look at those issues of Deathlock from Astonishing Tales, especially now when the paper is really yellow, Deathlock is really a sickly gray. But when they recolored it in the Masterworks, they put since it was a light purple, that's what they put in there. So it's lilac Deathlock in those Masterworks. Yeah. It's just because, and also like it was a light screen of the purple. So, that means the dots were far apart. Well, now the dots for that purple are really close together. He really looks lilac in the Masterworks. So I was just kind of like, ooh, that's one place maybe he shouldn't have gone literal with the color. And Smile, I don't know if you were here earlier when I was talking about how you can get a lot of those epics right now on the digital versions of them for $4 a piece on Amazon or Comixology. So I got a couple yet. I'm not a big digital guy, but for $4 for an epic collection, I'll spend $4 on something.
Right.
Oh, there we go. Comixology has their digital Marvel Epic Collection on sale. I'll be getting the Yeah, I bought the 3 new X-Men ones. I want to get some Captain America ones. I just happened to stumble onto those on Amazon. It didn't say they were on sale, but a lot of them are like. What's crazy is like the Masterworks editions are like $12 to $15 for the digital version, while the Epic is $4. The Deathlock Complete collections, yeah. Right. Just take a look at your Deathlock Complete collection and notice how lilac Deathlock looks. If it's those same Masterworks files. Huh. Jared, I want some of this. Which do you the best Captain America to me are the John Byrne ones. The John Byrne drawn ones from around issue 250. There's not a lot of them. And I like the Kirby ones. I like the Mad Bomb Captain America, and I like just after that, like the I like those Kirby ones.
Mm-hmm.
But I also have a soft spot for the Grunwald Captain America. Captain America was the last Marvel book that was on my pull list. Captain America was on my pull list from when I was a kid till when I turned 30 in 1996, and Rob Liefeld took it over, and it was off my. And the reason it was still on my pull list was because I liked Mark Grunwald's Captain America. The one stuff he usually only had a B or C level artist with him. So I'm not going to tell you they were great comics, because most people thought they were mediocre. But to me, I liked them. And to me, Mark Grunwald was one of the only writers who really got Captain America, because to me and to Mark Grunwald, Captain America is his effect on other people. Captain America because like Captain America and the Avengers was often written as an asshole authority figure who Hawkeye or someone else rebelled against.
Right.
But in Grunwald's book, Captain America was a guy who people wanted to be better around.
Mm-hmm.
And that showed in Grunwald's writing, because there was often a lot of, C and D list villains who wanted to turn good because they were hanging out with Captain America. Captain America was always willing to take them on and try to help them, and they help Cap and he helps them. So I always enjoyed Grunwald's Captain America. And I have a soft spot for the stuff in the 70s too. But if I were to start, I'd start with the John Byrne stuff. I think that, and the Mike Zeck stuff. John Byrne stuff, the Mike Zeck stuff that came after it, the Kirby stuff. But the Kirby stuff is weird Kirby. You got to like Kirby to like that stuff.
I think it was the Stern Byrne run that did that to Captain America, because that's when they went back to give Cap a civilian cast.
Yeah.
His neighbors, Josh Cooper, Bernie Rosenthal, they all came from that run, and he kind of let the Falcon was still there, but he put him just a little bit on the back burner, and he could use him when he wanted, instead of just having him running around. And when J.M. DeMatteis took over, and with Mike Zeck on art, he continued. I think, looking back, I wasn't aware of it, but looking back, I think that DeMatteis did a good job, basically keeping everything that Roger Stern had added, and then doing the stories his way with those ingredients.
Yeah, because the Stern and Byrne run ended prematurely due to some editorial dispute with editorial. Mm-hmm. And it was shaping up to be a really classic run too. It's a shame it didn't have more issues. But the Zeck stuff I don't think Zeck was on immediately after him. There may have been a few issues of mediocrity, and then Zeck took over. But Zeck was on for a few issues, and then that was good stuff.
Yeah, there were a couple of fill-in issues which the Brazilian publisher didn't use, but then they went, and then it was the Zeck stuff. But the first Captain America I ever saw was Mike Zeck, and Mike Zeck is seeing Mike Zeck's art is kind of the reason that I still like comics, because that's what showed me that comics didn't need to be for little kids, and I was 6.
Right. I much prefer physical comics too, but for $4, I'll buy digital. I'll buy stuff in digital that I would just never want to buy or have. I wouldn't want to buy or have take up room in the physical sense. Like I
Things
still have most of the Grunwald Captain America, not
the thing is,
all of it.
what Grunwald did is he spent the Grunwald he made it progressive, but after 2 years he got rid of everything that came from the Stern Burn and the DeMattei Zek run.
Right.
He got rid of the cast. He got rid of Nomad. He got rid of Falcon. He got rid of Bernie.
Yeah, I if it's written by Mark Grunwald, I generally like it, but I'm not going to promise you'll like it because, like I said, the most people didn't like Grunwald's run on that, and I think a lot of the reason was because, like, he always had C-list artists with him. He never had a big name artist on Captain America with him. So though I enjoyed it, but it was like a throwaway for me. It was, matter of fact, that's why I don't have like the last, I don't know, 5 years of his run, is I'd read them once and give them away. That's what I still enjoyed reading them, but I was like, I'm never going to read them again. And the only reason I'd get them now digitally is because they're cheap and digital hoarding basically. I'm not even sure if I'm ever going to read them. I kind of want to read them again, but
I never had a problem with Paul Neary doing the art. I can't.
They were all okay, but there was no one as good as Mike Zeck.
And but Neary tried very hard to be Zeck, and while he didn't succeed, he managed to incorporate some techniques into his own style. It was still very dynamic. Kieron Dwyer took over for the lead up to the Captain storyline with and John Walker. He was not as good. Dwyer, I think Dwyer was John Byrne's stepson.
Right.
And he eventually got better, but what he did in Captain America was a major downturn in quality. So when Ron Lim started, I welcomed it with open arms, especially because Ron Lim has a problem. He needs the correct anchor, and Danny Belanati was a good anchor for him.
Yeah, he needs a lot of it. Here's some more recommendations for Stern and Byrne and DeMatteis and some more of Grunwald. I'm glad to hear other people like Grunwald because I'm like the only fan of that Grunwald run I know. With Stern and Byrne, yeah, exactly. That's one of the great what ifs if Stern and Byrne had stayed on Cap. How much more goods, because they did some. They're only on for like 6 issues, and they're still the best issues of that run.
I did like the villains. I was a very big fan of the Serpent Society. I liked Flag Smasher in his early appearances. The thing is, you know when a villain is used by somebody other than the creator, and then he starts going down in the danger scale, and he's not as dangerous as he used to be. Yeah. Grunwald did that himself to his own villains.
See, I like Zek's art, but there was always something a little bit off about it for me. In that the faces he drew always had a weird concavity to them.
I was that way about Gene Day's art. I liked it. There's something just Gene Day.
I was like Gene Day.
I liked it, but there's just something slightly off about it at the same time.
Yeah, I didn't find anything off about Gene Day's art, but Mike Zeck a little bit. But Mike Zeck was good at imagery too. He made some classic covers, and that's all about imagery, making those classic covers.
Mike Zeck had this way of drawing characters in movement, like they were not on the ground, right, and they were not moving straight. It's like they were contorting while moving forward. But they kind of worked, made dynamic, and I figured something out. When Rob Liefeld says, "Oh, I was a big fan of Jack Kirby," no, I know it. I know exactly who Rob Liefeld stole his style from. He stole it from Mike Zeck. He just doesn't know how to incorporate it into something that's believable.
See, I haven't read. I don't remember. I don't make any distinction between it. His run all blends together in my mind. I don't remember thinking it got bad or anything at the end, but I haven't read it I haven't read it since 1996, so I don't really know. I couldn't compare the first to the back half. John Byrne's stepson, yes, okay.
After 350, there are more lows after 350 when Steve gets the uniform back, and I especially don't like the Bloodstone Hunt storyline when Baron Zemo goes after the Ulysses Bloodstone's skeleton. Because that's Zemo's first appearance after the Mansion Siege storyline in Avengers, when they destroyed the mansion and beat up Jarvis. And Zemo still has a neck brace in that cap, so which is part of the reason why Grunwald was a very good continuity cop. But the motivation, Zemo's motivation in that story, it doesn't jibe with what Stern had done in the Mansion Siege storyline.
I never read the Mansion Siege storyline, so that didn't bother me. And now I like Mind the Comics joke. Now I'm picturing Zek's characters doing parkour.
but that is true. That movement flowed. It was very superhuman. The way Zek made Cap leap through buildings, even more, not just because of the super soldier. He definitely seemed superhuman with that movement. Of course, he did the same thing with the Punisher. So.
And the only Epic comic from the original Epic comics that have been collected from Epic comic collection is Punisher. How could Punisher be an Epic comic? Weren't they supposed to be creator-owned?
Yeah, no. Return to Big Nothing was an Epic graphic novel, like Iron Man Crash.
Ah, okay.
You remember that Epic was not a big sales success.
Yeah.
And after Shooter was fired and DeFalco took over, there was a bit of pressure for the logo to produce a hit, and that's why they did Electro Assassin and Silver Surfer Parable. So they put the Epic logo on a few comics with Marvel characters.
The Crash thing you just mentioned, wasn't that all digital?
Yeah, this was the one made by Mike Sainz.
I think that's still on my shelf somewhere. I just like to say every time someone makes fun of Capwolf, I like to point out that Firestorm did it first. He had Were Hyena Firestorm, but it's too hard to say Were Hyena, so nobody remembers it. Catwolf rolls off the tongue.
It should roll right off the table right after that.
Yeah.
One Epic I'll be getting is Craven's Last Hunt. I haven't read. You know what? I got the I got him. It must be a decade ago now. I bought the. Do you remember when Marvel was doing the first edition hardcovers? I forget what they called them, but they would collect like little runs and hardcovers and limited print runs.
Fairly thin hardcovers too, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was that?
Fairly thin hardcovers.
Yeah,
too.
fairly thin ones, right?
Like 5 issues, maybe 6.
Right, Marvel Premiere or something. Marvel Premiere hardcovers or something like that.
Yeah.
And no one cares about them. They never were worth any money. But I actually bought Craven's Last Hunt in that edition and read it for the first time since it came out, and I enjoyed it. I have to say, it held up well. And not having read it since the '80s. The Bloodstone Hunts where Grunwald starts to fall off. Everything up to that is great. Okay. That's because it was more mature. The Punisher. That's what he's talking about.
The Return to Big Nothing was done by Stephen Grant and Mike Zeck. And if you want to ignore the ongoing series and just read the original miniseries and that, they kind of flow together. It's not a continuation, but that's Stephen Grant's Punisher in there, which is different from what Mike Baron did.
Craven's Last Hunt has Zek's best art job, in my opinion. Oh, okay. Yeah, it was good. It was nicely done. Rick Parker on the lettering, too, if I remember correctly. Saw him talking about that recently on Facebook.
Series, and I can't remember who did it now. I'm going to have to look it up.
What series?
I can't remember. I can't
Oh, okay.
remember. I think I might be getting my artist mixed up. That's what I'm gonna look it up.
Well, I'll show you. While you're looking that up, I'll show you one more comic I got this week. Out of the two left is Time Before Time.
Oh, wow.
And the last issue was a done in one by the Declan Shalvey, who's the writer of it too. And now we're back to our regular artist, who's this Mike Mignola-ish guy. What's his name? Joe Palmer. And Chris O'Halloran is on the colors, and Declan Shalvey and Rory McConville are writing it. And it's a time travel story. It's a time gangster story. Because two syndicates who run time. Yeah, just what Scott doesn't like.
And more gangsters, more vampires, and throw a musical in there too. Or
I've been enjoying it. It's good. It's been solid. I think last issue, the one that Declan Shalvey wrote, was especially good. Now we're back to a regularly scheduled story, and with this guy who's trying to escape. He worked for what it is there's like two different eras that have time travel, like 2714 and 3417, and it's all kind of underground. And these syndicates run it, and the one syndicate doesn't like the other syndicate, and there's conflict all the time and stuff like that. And I think the guys who actually run the machine, it's dangerous to run the machines. If you run them too often, too much, you get, radiation sickness of some kind. But they're kind of, it's kind of like when they end up getting in debt to the company, that sort of thing. So they have to keep working at it. And this guy was trying to escape. So they had this whole plan to steal a time machine and escape.
They're like 34th century coal miners.
Yes. That was screwed up by an FBI agent who wanted the time machine to go find her family, and They've been on the run ever since.
Yeah, I was getting Mike Zack confused with Bruce Zick.
It's funny. I ended up liking Nocterra at the Nocterra and Geiger came out at the same time, and to me they were kind of the same thing. There were mainstream people doing indie books, and I bought the first issue of each, and I kind of liked Geiger better, so I ended up putting that one on my pull list. But then, it was a slow week when Nocterra #2 came out, so I picked it up, and I kind of liked it better. But by the end of the first 6-issue run of each one, I liked Nocterra better than I liked Geiger. So I ended up enjoying it. You know what it is with Nocterra? It's one of those ones with such a dumb premise that I have to get over the premise in order to enjoy the story. The premise is there's no more light. And if you're out in the darkness, you get turned into a monster. So you need lights on to keep. And it's just such a dumb. But eventually they explain it a little more. I don't know that it makes it less dumb, but kind of. But yeah, I ended up liking Nocterra. So give it a read on Hoopla. Did you guys like Squadron Supreme by Grunwald? Yes, I did.
Never read
it. Definitely.
I haven't read it since the 80s, but Tim calls it his Watchmen.
And I agree, because I think that is Marvel's Watchmen.
And also because Tim didn't have a comic shop near him as a kid, so he couldn't get Watchmen. So, but, Squadron Supreme actually covers some of the same ground as Watchmen in a way. So that was his watch. I'm gonna have to reread that. Who drew that?
Bob Hall, the first 5 issues, then Paul Ryan. There's a John Buscema fill-in.
Okay. If he had Dave Gibbons, it may have been much better regarded.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's a regular Marvel comic with regular Marvel Comics coloring from the 80s. Mm-hmm. And Grunwald doesn't write like Alan Moore, and neither Bob Hall nor Paul Ryan drew like Dave Gibbons.
Right.
So yeah, but the story's solid. It just
well
doesn't.
written.
Yeah, it just doesn't have that thing
Right.
that Watchmen has.
It was. I would say it was well written, and to compare to Watchmen is a little unfair of us, but
it's well written and it's professionally drawn.
Right. That's what it is. It's as a matter of fact, when we were
I think the best description I can say that it's lacking artistic intent.
Right. It's when I was talking last week about the artist not in modern Marvel not buying into the story,
right?
That the writer has written, and I mentioned something about how Watchmen wouldn't be the same book if it was drawn by even someone as talented as John Buscema as it was talented with. I don't think Bob Hall and Paul Ryan bought into the concept as much as they
should have.
as someone else may have who's more of an auteur.
They wouldn't. There's another thing. Moore and Gibbons knew each other for 10 years when Watchmen came out. Mm-hmm. They worked together. They worked at 2000 AD together. I don't think they actually worked together because there's more collaborations with Alan Davis, but they definitely knew each other and were aware of each other. Maybe they worked on Doctor Who together. That might have been it. Mm-hmm. And Grunwald was a Marvel staffer who wrote, and the other guys were regular Marvel contributors. The thing is, Bob Hall never really had a career in comics. I think he was stage theater
set painter,
or set designer for set designer for theater, and they did comics on the side. So that's why there are no big Bob Hall runs, even though he's very good. The last time I picked up Squadron Supreme, I was paying attention to the art, and I noticed that he had some very interesting storytelling techniques. So he was more interested in applying those techniques to the story at the moment than in building up something that would have made it unique. So it's not as much of a question of not buying into the concept, is that there was not that relationship that Moore and Gibbons had with each other, and Hall not being a regular comics artist trying to do that comics thing. As for Paul Ryan, Ryan was already some credit, but he was still pretty young. I think he was 30 at the time. Yeah. But he was not big yet. He would only get big a few years later.
Right. Yeah, I'm actually not a huge Watchmen fan either. I mean, but it's an extraordinarily well crafted comic.
I'm a huge fan of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, though.
I'm a mediocre fan of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I'm not going to say I'm a big fan of it, but I bought a bit of it.
I'm not knocking on Kevin O'Neill's artwork at all. But I would love to see a version of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen that was drawn by Gary Gianni.
Yeah, and Grunwald was a big... Matter of fact, it was... who was it? Mike Carlin and Mark Grunwald were... I think it was Mike Carlin, right? Were like really good friends. And Mike was the big Marvel fan, and Mark was the big DC fan. But then Mike Carlin ended up working at DC and Mark Grunwald over at Marvel for long times.
Yeah, like Mark Carlin did Superman for a long time, didn't he?
Yeah. He was an editor over there for a long, long time, yeah. I like Paul Ryan, but enjoyed the Bob Hall art more on Squadron. Okay. See, if I were to say, to me, the best New Universe book was the Jim Shooter and J.R. Jr. one. Oh, what the hell was the name of it? It just flew out of my head.
Starbrand.
Starbrand. I really liked that one at the time. I haven't read it since, but that was the only New Universe book I was buying. But I've heard good things about DP7. Rewind. What did you miss? Nothing. You missed nothing at all. DP7
just
was a
arguing
good
about
one,
stuff,
non-teenagers X-Men, but good enough. Good enough, you say? Since Comic Crack is back, we're going to do a rip, read, and slab. Let's see, which one do I want to do?
I have one ready to go to, so we can do that later.
Okay.
We'll do some...
Pal's got one in the barrel.
All right. Do I have it in the right spot? Hold on. I do not have it.
That's a good...
Well, it's true.
That's a good comment.
Whoops, wrong thing. I keep hitting the wrong button. There we go. Because I work with 4 different desktops. So when you turns out when you share on StreamYard, the 2 screens have to be in the same desktop, otherwise it doesn't see it. There we go. We're going to Marvel, October 1976. And the Defenders 43, Tomb of Dracula 52, Captain America 205. Figured I'd start us off with some books we all know.
Okay. I've already made my decision. I'm going to read Dracula. I'm going to slab Captain America, and I'm going to rip up the Defenders.
Rip up the Defenders? That nice Kirby cover?
I like the cover,
but the interior is not Kirby, and the Defenders are not a Kirby team. So I'm gonna agree with you on all 3.
That was still some Steve Gerber Defenders, I think. That was good stuff.
I'd rather read Dracula.
I normally wouldn't read Dracula, but that's one of the Janus stories.
That purple sky in the background of the Dracula cover bothers me, and I don't know why.
I'm gonna
purple like that.
No purple skies, no yellow skies.
I mean, I've seen a purple sky, but it ain't like that.
Not that purple.
No, it's not that.
Not comic book cover purple.
Right.
I think I'm gonna have to rip up Tomb of Dracula. And slab Captain America and read the Defend. No, I'd rather read Captain America and slab the Defenders.
Okay.
But as much as I like Tomb of Dracula, I think I'd rather read Cap. And I actually like those. That's when I first started reading the Defenders back then. So I want to read them again and see if. But since I won't be able to, I'll have to slab it. At least it's got a Kirby cover to slab.
Oops.
And he's gone.
He ripped himself up.
Yeah, but I never managed to get into Defenders, and having a Kirby cover doesn't help.
StreamYard kicked me out again. They don't like me.
Who was the...
Yeah, I remember reading that. I didn't read Starbrand after Shooter, and I read they even blew up Pittsburgh because it was Shooter's hometown. Yeah, got to do an Underground Comics one.
I'll be honest, I could go 5 more years without hearing either about Shooter or Byrne ever again. I'm
going to be getting some more of those cheap digital Marvel epic comics. Read Defenders, slab Tomb, rip Captain. Kirby Captain America is ripping up. Tomb of Dracula, so good. Slab Defenders, I like it. Read Dracula, another one ripping up that cat. Thank fuck that guy's gone. Hey, I'm back, you. Vampire and Roller Coaster is okay, but the Purple Sky is too much.
Not too many things bug me more about comics up through the 70s, 80s than the god-awful coloring.
Hey, but I bet that Dracula has that Dracula's vest has the buttons on the right side.
I wonder
On the
who
correct
colored,
side, I mean.
Yeah. I wonder who colored that cover.
Is it even credited?
No, but I know
No,
George Roussos was their main color. I think Marie Severin was colored a lot of covers in like the late '60s, early '70s, and then George Roussos at some time in the late '70s. I think
Marie's coloring a little less saturated than that?
What was that?
Wasn't Marie's typical coloring a little less saturated than
and
that?
so was George Roussos, which made me wonder who would put a purple sky on Tomb of Dracula. Because George's coloring tended to be pretty conservative in terms of that, and in terms of not putting a purple sky in something. So I don't know who colored. I don't know who. It's interesting. Because like when I was there in the '90s, George Roussos was still Marvel's cover colorist.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see like someone just showed one of the pages from it was from the first Spider-Man black costume. What is that? Amazing 243, 241, whatever it was.
I don't know. I just remember Charles Bess's cover for Web of Spider-Man #1.
Not actually ripping off anything, right? It still hurts, man, just to think about. But like I think it's in the Marvel Covers book. It was reproduced, and in that cover, I think Klaus Janson was the inker, and Klaus was also a colorist. So you can see there are notes that say George on it. So there are notes to George Roussos about the coloring that Klaus gave him.
Gotcha.
The suggestions on the coloring. So George was, the official colorist by the early '80s, but I don't know when he came on. I don't know who was doing coloring between George and Marie Severin.
Also, I think credits for like color covers were not exactly
252. There's the issue.
That great sometimes either.
Yeah. No,
I should know that.
If they're crediting colorists on the Grand Comics database, cover colorists, it's most likely a crapshoot. They have no idea.
Well, there were some years that George Roussos was the only cover colorist.
Mm-hmm.
So he colored them all. But Paul Becton did some of them. I know that in the '90s. But you'd have to ask, You'd have to ask.
And before Marie Severin, everything was Stan Goldberg.
Right. He colored the insides, I know. Did he color the covers too? I don't.
Yeah, he was coloring the covers as early as 1953.
Oh wow,
Goldberg, but Dan Goldberg.
Now that brings us back 1953. When did Marie Severin start coloring for EC Comics?
I have no idea. I'd have to look it up.
Me too. Where's my EC Comics book? Because remember when we discussed before in comics history, did they make, because Marie Severin was the first one to make color guides for EC Comics. But I don't know if people did color guides for other, like did Marvel do color guides? Was Stan Goldberg doing color guides for Marvel before Marie Severin was doing them for EC Comics?
Who knows?
Don't really know.
Yes,
the only reason we know Goldberg did colored Marvel's covers in the 50s is because he said so himself. Right. And Nick Caputo's been adding everything to all those 50s horror covers.
Because somebody asked him. Yeah, but the inside colorists of the comics didn't color the covers too. Usually,
right.
Usually they had someone on staff coloring the covers.
It says here that Marie Severin did coloring at EC from 1949 to 1955.
Okay, so she could still been the
virtually
first
all
one.
the titles. Yeah.
Well, at Marvel, after the implosion, at least until 1965, Goldberg was the only colorist for the covers and insides.
Okay. Okay.
There was one thing that Bill Everett used to do. Is he used to letter his own art, even if he did not write the script.
What's amazing to me about Bill Everett too is he was using dual shade board in like 1939.
Mm-hmm.
Those early Submariners are all on duo shade board with the two tones in them. I must have been the only one using it too, because I never see it anywhere.
Yeah, they probably even told him to knock it off because it costs too much to print.
Probably.
No, it doesn't cost any more to print.
But the detail with 19
They may have thought it printed crappy.
Yeah, with Martin Goodman in 1941, probably.
Because I remember the first time I ever saw that stuff, and I didn't know what dual shade board was then. Early Submariner was done on a dual shade board. Was in the back when they reprinted the early Submariners in the back of the Invaders.
Don't know, but it's in the Golden Age of Marvel Comics trade paperback, the first Submariner story.
They cleaned them up for that version. If you could see the versions that were in the Invaders in the 70s, it was like, whoa. I remember looking at it as a kid going, what is wrong with these pages?
Yeah, but a mess. But I imagine that they were hard to come out well in the printing at that time, especially because Goodman was not going to pay for something.
They probably weren't archived well either.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine. Let's see, well, that brings me to another rip, read, and tear. Since I did books we all know, let's do some books we know nothing about. From before our time. Marmaduke Mouse, number 6. Polly Pigtails, number 16. And Tilly the Toiler, number 150. I have never heard of all three of these are completely new to me.
I heard of Tilly the Toiler, but I've never read it.
What's the publisher on those?
Jeez, I don't even remember. Let's see if they...
I'm just trying to figure out which one to rip up because I already know which one to read.
There's no publisher on the covers. I don't know. That one might.
Is Marmaduke Mouse DC? Is that a DC logo? Doesn't look.
No. EF? No. Oh, and that might be Marvel. MCM, is that? It's so low resolution. I can't.
No. In 1947, they did not use MC.
Okay.
Was Magazine Enterprises active in 1947?
Is Polly Dell? I don't even know.
Might be.
Don't know.
Go on to Mike's Amazing World of Comics, April 1947, and look it up.
Actually, it might not be. This looks like a...
Read none, then you're not playing the game. Looks like she's carrying a Japanese kento.
I don't think Polly is EC. This was a magazine. It's like what Goodman did with Miss America, turning it into a magazine. So this should be a magazine with comics inside.
Is Polly Pigtails someone, I wonder? Because there's a picture.
Polly Pigtails.
Maybe she's from some other medium.
I'm not familiar. Maybe a radio show?
Possibly.
Maybe.
Let's look it up and find out. Let's see. I've already made mine.
Yeah, so I'm going to read Marmaduke Mouse, rip Polly Pigtails, and slab Tilly the Toiler.
I agree with Paolo.
I think I'm going to slab Polly Pigtails. Just because of the alliteration. I like saying Polly Pigtails. So I may as well slab that one, hang it up somewhere, and say, look, I got Polly Pigtails 16.
I don't think I'm going to convince anyone that that's a comic because of the photo cover.
Yeah, I'm not really a fan of that type of photo cover.
It's the logo that gets, I think I'm going to read Tilly the Toiler and rip Marmaduke Mouse. Oh, says from Parents Magazine. Yeah. Polly is from Parents Magazine.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, definitely rip.
No way, that one's getting slabbed. That's got the most interesting name.
I'm going to. The reason I'm slabbing Tilly the Toiler is because I like the idea of in a mainstream comic in the 40s, they're doing a drawing an artist drawing.
I guess Tilly the Toilet. I'm picking Polly Pigtails because the alliteration, and they all have alliteration.
They're all three. Yeah. Sure.
I didn't even notice I picked 3 with alliteration.
Yeah, I don't really want to read Marmaduke Mouse, but that's what was left.
But the art style is more like semi-Walt Kelly-ish.
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm ripping Marmaduke Mouse. I want 2 M's, not just 1 M. I don't like that logo. They start doing more comic book covers for Polly later in the series. Polly went 43 issues. Holy cow.
Damn.
Wow. Have you ever met a person who's collected Polly Pigtails? I have not, since I've never heard of it before.
Not that I'm aware of.
Not a fan of movie or TV photo covers on comic or comic collections. Picked up Stargirl by Geoff Johns' collection as a TV cover, sadly. Yeah. I kind of like these weird old Hollywood publicity still covers because they're so sort of.
So you'd like some of the old Tarzan covers, then?
Yeah, they're just so weird. They're just so of their time.
Right.
Okay, so looking at some Polly Pigtails cover. Oh, this is nice. Different model in all of them.
Yeah. You could be the next Polly Pigtails.
She's not Polly Pigtail. She's
Polly Pigtails collectors are almost all in jail. I like the Roy Rogers covers.
Is this indexed on the Grand Comics database? Talk to me, Grand Comics database.
No,
yes.
They made a hardcover of it, and then no.
Yes. Okay. So, right. Parents Magazine Press. Then it was renamed Polly with issue number 40. And went up to 43.
On older comics, like the photo comics are okay because I have no emotional attachment to that character. Or yeah, that could be it too. That could be why I like the older one. There's a nostalgia to it, and also they're all sort of like old Hollywood publicity stills, which is different than sort of a cosplay cover you get.
Right.
Let me see if I can find a known artist working on the comics inside.
Paolo, they have a full listing on My Comic Shop.
They do, but they probably don't have the artists.
I guess that's what a full listing would be.
but not on My Comic Shop. Okay, so here's the Jack Sparling story number 2.
See, that's the one Paolo's most interested in now, and he ripped it up.
but the majority of them, they don't have a name. Oh, they index the writer if the writer's credited in the comic, of course. But some of them are signed. They look more like illustrators. I don't know these names.
Read off a few of them.
There's a lot of people who worked in comics in 1947 that we have no idea who they are.
Yeah.
So issue number 6 as art by Richard Staples Dodge.
He's got 3 names. He must be an illustrator.
Yeah, there's a text story with art signed DeMartini, and another one signed Ivers.
Oh wow!
Jared, if you have 3 names.
Zogbaum?
Yeah.
They have a Nazi story in number 2 of Polly.
Jared, if you go by all 3 names, it means you're either a blues guy or you're a serial killer.
Okay, let's move a little bit further. Number 18. No.
What's in number 16?
Bother. Number 16. Number 16. Yeah, no identified artist. Yeah, there's this type of thing that the indexers don't know the artists unless they're art spotters.
Right.
or unless there's some other context in a document, like they had job batch numbers somewhere at a company that had those records in them.
So let's find out more about Marmaduke Mouse.
I'm sure. More about Marmaduke Mouse.
Quality Comics.
Paolo's knowledge of creative credits is impressive. I've forgotten John Buscema drew an issue of Squadron Supreme. Just remembered Hall and Ryan on that. Yeah.
Yeah, he did the story where they have the fake Hyperion.
Yeah, I can remember I'd go to lunch with my friend Ed, who's also a comic book guy and an artist, and Bob Wyachek, the comic book inker. We'd be out and all of a sudden they'd start discussing like early 1970s stories, like from Marvel, and like Ralph Reese inked a couple of pages of that. And I'd just be like, how do you guys know that? I know a lot. I don't know that.
Yeah.
Like, I know the exact issue you mean. That's the one where so and so inked pages 7 and 6.
Just the third panel, though.
Yeah, the art on that Marmaduke Mouse was by Ernie Hart.
I don't know that name at all.
Ernie Hart? No, he was a well-known Golden Age artist.
Yeah, I don't know that.
Yeah, he also wrote there's still some comics in early Marvel in the 1960s. Signed H.E. Huntley. That's Ernie Hart. Okay. I do have Ernie Hart, if I'm not mistaken, was the first Two-Gun Kid artist. Let me check my own database from stuff that I pillaged off of the Grim Comics database. Yeah, I didn't reorganize it in a way that I want to, especially because the GCD is becoming overly complicated without any need to do so.
Hal is going to start a new group, and we'll call it the Pillage People.
An organized Grand Data comic base.
Okay. Yeah, there's a couple of Ernie
Hart. The
Hart.
rest of my life to get to Paolo's level of comic book knowledge.
There's a couple of Ernie Hart Captain Americas still in the mid 40s.
Without your own database, you'll never get there. And Paolo is really a cyborg. No, you can imagine those.
Yeah. Okay. Not Two-Gun Kid. Ernie Hart wrote Kid Colt.
Okay.
And he drew another funny animal called Raleigh and Solly for Marvel. It did the art on the first Super Rabbit story. He only did write Two-Gun Kid, a few stories, but he wasn't a regular writer. And there are a couple of ink jobs on Kirby stuff, on the Vision. And
speaking of credits, I just saw. I can't remember who the colorist is now, but somebody on Twitter said something about, and the colorist actually chimed in. Said that this random Twitter person said something about him being really impressed that he saw that. Said I wish I could remember the colorist's name. Colored 200 issues in a row of Superman from like 1988 till 1998 or something like that. I was like, whoa, that is a lot of issues in a row to color. And the colorist chimed in, and he's like, I was the Cal Ripken Jr. of colorist back then. I was like, wow, I wouldn't have thought any colorist colored 200 issues in a row of anything.
If it's between 88 and or was he coloring Superman weekly because of the 4 titles?
I think he was one book for 10 years. 200 issues. Well, 5 years. It must have been more than one book because monthly 5 years.
Yeah, it's a long run for
10 years would be 120.
Tom Luth did, grew for years and years and years, but that's a long run for colors.
Yeah, that is. The editor must have really liked him. because that's as important as doing the work. Do you believe the story of Otto Binder giving Siegel and Schuster the idea for Superman at a book convention? No.
Sounds
I've
fishy.
never heard that before, but...
But no, I don't believe it.
Sounds a little fishy.
That and...
What year would that have been? 36?
It had
5 maybe? Well, just
35.
Yeah,
35.
35.
How many book conventions they both attended back then? A publisher convention I could see more so, but
and often people are just talking to. Rarely have I ever seen any creative person go, "Oh, that's a great idea. I'm going to go do it," and then they go off and do it. That doesn't happen ever.
It happens a lot with movie directors.
Yes.
It's like, let me do this before somebody else realizes I stole their idea.
Right. It's different to be influenced by something than to say. Right. And the movie business, the elevator pitch is what gets you the movie. In comics, there were no elevator pitches. You had to show them comics.
I don't know if Otto Binder would have given away an idea that had that much potential to it.
Like, I can remember one. Do you remember that there was a Tempest in a Teapot a few years ago about someone discovering in one of the issues of Foom there was another Wolverine character that...
No, I don't remember that at all.
Someone sent in and Marvel in Foom or something, and there's this whole, did John Romita rip off,
Right. If you look hard enough, you're going to find.
I'm like, the idea that John Romita would have to rip off a character from some kid writing in a letter is absurd. That's not how creative people do things.
Mm-hmm.
And John Romita has created enough stuff in his, career, even up to that point, that it's like anybody who says that has no idea how creative people work. You don't take ideas from letters that came in. Someone says we need a Wolverine, and you come up with it. You don't need some kid's idea. You don't go, oh my goodness, how will I ever come up with an idea for Wolverine? You just do it because that's your job.
But then you would make a story about how you did and call yourself Stan Lee.
No, it's relatively easy. Okay, come up with a character that's called Wolverine. Okay, what do Wolverines look like? Let me open up this Animal Planet book or whatever. So that's Wolverine.
Did it. Dun. Hal is the Alexa of comic knowledge.
Yeah, better not.
much better than being the Alex Jones of comic knowledge.
And the last comic I got for
they're putting chemicals in the comics that are turning Superman gay.
Chemtrails, mind you.
Vinyl number 6 is the last issue of our serial killer versus the cult leader story. Brightly colored wraparound cover too. This one was fun. It was a fun story. I really enjoyed the art. It's by, let's see, Doug Wagner is the writer, Daniel Hilliard is the artist, Dave Stewart the colorist, Ed Dukeshire the letterer. Good stuff. I mean, like I said, it's one of those. It's only 6 issues. It was a fun story about a FBI agent, retired, who gets caught between this cult leader who hates him and this serial killer who thinks he's his buddy.
Killing me.
So
Terrence wants to be the Larry Flint of comics. Can you afford
that Jack Cole?
Wow.
I don't quite know what that means, but Larry Flint was successful with his magazine, so why
not? Okay, so the Red Baron comic is about the Red Baron. Okay, that's cool. I like that.
The Red Baron comic I was looking at is about the Red Baron, painted art by Carlos Puerta, published by Cinebook. You got a Scott.
I hadn't heard of it, but maybe I'll. Well, let me check out Carlos Puerto.
I'm all about some more comics about fighter planes, man.
Fighter plane. Oh, that reminds me. There's a new comic shop news.
Well, this regular style looks. Oh, it actually does do different styles. Interesting.
I forgot to look up that artist that was doing Galactus.
Fighter planes just reminds me. The latest comic shop news has the Lion and the Eagle. A comic that's from Garth Ennis and artist P.J. Holden, colorist Mac Miller, and letterer Rob Steen. And Prestige format limited series chronicles the experience of the Chindits, the aforementioned British Special Forces unit. So I think it's where is it? It's the Japanese and the British fighting in World War II in 1942. Mm-hmm. The conflict between the British and Japanese in Burma is almost lost to history now. Right. So it's about that. That one, you saying fighter planes reminded me of that piece of art. So. And if they mentioned something in here that intrigued me. That's from Scout Comics. I've never seen one of these. Have any of you seen? It says "We Don't Kill Spiders" #1, which I haven't seen that comic, but I've heard that title. And then it says they're printing Legendary Edition, an 11x17 version of the supernatural Viking era murder tale. Have you guys ever seen the 11x17 Scout Comics? I'd like to see one of those, but this is the first I'm hearing of them.
Was that the format that Sleepy Reader was talking about in one of his videos?
I don't know.
It's an oversized, but I didn't think it was quite that oversized. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I don't know, but I thought that was pretty cool. As part of the Comixology sale, I guess the Red Baron one. Mm. Garth Ennis loves war comics. Yeah, I've read a couple of his war comics.
The last Garth Ennis thing I remember reading was Battler Britain, I think.
Yeah, that's the one I read, Battler Britain. But the only thing that gives me pause is the Prestige format. Because I don't know if that's what they're... I like these, because it's an Aftershock comic. And I've been liking these oversized Aftershock comics.
I think that's the one I was thinking about. Is that?
Okay. This is these are sort of like graphic novels, European graphic. They're 48 pages.
Yeah, that's the format I was thinking.
For $7, which to me is cheap for this. I generally don't like square-bound comics, but in this larger format, it works fine.
What size is that?
I think this is magazine size. Let me see. It
looks bigger than 8.5.
Luckily, I have
different than 8.5 by 11.
8.5.
Okay, it's probably 8.5 by 11 then.
By 11. There we go. Exactly. But a new Aftershock one-shot came out this week, but I saw it. I had already spent my $6 on that second copy of Great Gatsby, so I don't have to wait till next week to get that.
$10 you'll never have back in total.
I like the comic. The comic is terrific.
That's good.
But of course, if they ever come out in which they probably a fancy hardcover version, I'll get it in that too. But that's how much of a Gatsby fan I am, and
you have to.
Like I said, the art is really nice by that Portuguese artist whose name I don't remember right now.
Jorge Coelho.
The one that you couldn't pronounce.
There we go.
Yeah.
But I've been enjoying these too. I've been enjoying the format. I've been enjoying the fact that they're done in ones. So I don't have to. I can just spend $7 and because what I always do is when vinyl came out, I bought the first issue, which was $4. And now it's probably going to go 6 issues. So, 4 times.
Would that be the perfect book to put a flexi disc in?
There you go. I have to say to myself, is it worth $24? That's what I'm always asking myself when I start a new series. Well, how much is this worth to me?
Right.
$24? I don't know.
I saw earlier today that there's going to be a third 6-issue series of Norse mythology.
I want to see a Rabbit Run comic now. He just said Rabbit there, so. John Updike, Rabbit Run comic.
I mean, as dark and gritty as everything is in the past few years, they could just do Watership Down again, just make it even, scarier.
Well, Rabbit Run wasn't about an actual rabbit. Watership Down was. Let's see what else they got coming out. I don't know if I looked at all this. Reprint editions. Oh, Doctor Strange Epic Collection, A Separate Reality. I think they have that one on sale for $4 because. Wow, the list price on that one is $45. Holy, I didn't realize Epic Collections got that pricey. $45 for an Epic Collection?
No.
Yep.
Yeah, Venom Epic Collection Lethal Protector, $45. Holy cow.
I've never understood the appeal of Venom.
Yeah, that's because you weren't a kid when he came out. If you were 10 years old when he came out, you'd love Venom. That's all you have to know.
I don't know about that.
Yeah. Oh, Warlock by Jim Starlin, Gallery Edition hardcover for $50.
The Gallery Edition?
Yeah, it's more than a dozen Jim Starlin Warlock classics presented in full color in a handsome treasury-sized hardcover. Well, I got to look up that one because that's one of my favorites. John Severin, Two-Fisted Comic Book Artists hardcover.
That sounds good.
I guess that's the ZC Comics work.
How's that from Fantagraphics?
I don't know what to say. From 1947. Oh, no. John Severin co-created the legendary Western strip American Eagle and became an EC Comics mainstay, working with Harvey Kurtzman on Mad and Two-Fisted Tales. Crack.
It reminds me, several months ago, 7-8 months ago, I saw some pages that Jack Davis did that was going to be a Western comic strip that never actually got published.
Ah.
Man, those pages were gorgeous.
Wow. It's a T.O. Morrow's book.
Okay.
It says, now that storied career is explored in a volume that offers commentary from over 25 peers. Neil Adams, Corbin, Byrne, Russ Heath, and Walter Simonsen.
It's a book on.
Right. Mm-hmm. So it's a $40 hardcover. Wonder Woman Silver Age Omnibus. There's one I'll never get.
I'm glad to see that Tomorrow's is still putting out stuff.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, they do. They do really good work.
They do. I haven't gotten any of their stuff in years, but it's good stuff.
Yeah, we're always afraid these guys start losing steam after a couple of years.
Or losing money. Forget Steam. I'm glad they're making money at it because this stuff, it's nice that this stuff exists. Comic book creator number 27 with Paul Kung Fu Master Paul Galassi. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
A Paul Galassi retrospective. I'll have to start getting some of those T.O. Morrow's books again.
They usually have, like when Tim and I go down to Heroes Con in Charlotte, they always have a booth down there because they're headquartered in Raleigh, North Carolina, and they usually have some pretty good sales. Like you pick some stuff up fairly cheap.
Yeah.
The Modern Masters books they did were really good.
They're like $10 a magazine for their regular magazines. So
yeah, they just run $9.99. Yeah.
Well, I definitely want to get. There's going to be a Conan the Barbarian #1 facsimile edition
from
Marvel.
Oh, okay.
The Barry Smith Conan.
The one that Ralph Reese is not going to buy. Yeah.
The one that Ralph Reese is not going to buy.
Yeah. But they did it's like the $1 reprint of it.
Did they do Conan #1?
You just broke up. I didn't hear what you said.
I don't remember. I got so many of them. I don't remember which ones I have.
Like one of those $1 reprints, and I don't remember what they called them. It's like True
Yeah,
Believers.
True Believers.
Yeah, they did a Conan #1.
Okay. But the facsimile, I think, actually has cover stock to it. So,
with your luck, they do a self-cover stock.
But they haven't done any True Believers or facsimiles in a while, and I think DC hasn't either.
Yeah.
I think COVID put a stop to all their True Believers stuff and most of their facsimiles. I'm not quite sure why, but it did.
Still new.
Let's see, what else do we have in here? There's more Buffy the Vampire Slayer comics are still coming out. That amazes me.
Is it still from Dark Horse?
Still from Dark Horse. No, Boom now, pardon me.
Okay.
But I can remember I bought which was the first one? Buffy season 8? I think I bought Buffy season 8, and I may have bought Buffy season 9. I was just
never watched Buffy. Yeah.
I liked the TV show, but I haven't watched it since the 90s.
Watched it.
Mother F Goose one shot. I wonder if this is another. Oh yeah, this is. It's got a Pulp Fiction goose cover. But it's from Aftershock. It's from Aftershock, and it's
somebody shows Steve Gerber a royalty check.
And it's a one shot, and it's $6.99, so it must be that same format. So I'll end up buying it.
Terrence asked if you picked up Friday this week, and yeah, he talked about that earlier.
Did I pick up? Oh, the Starlin one. I mean. Friday I did. I showed it a little earlier. I just thought it was okay. But it turns out I thought it was a tribute to Encyclopedia Brown, and it turns out it really was. So, I mean, it's more of a young adults thing, really, than a grown-up thing. At least the first issue seemed to be, and it was well done. So, if you know some young adults who like Encyclopedia Brown, except not Encyclopedia Brown, but the girl who used to work with him, but then went off to college and is coming back for a visit to her old hometown. That's what this is about. And she's getting caught up again in the Encyclopedia Brown mysteries.
I liked Encyclopedia Brown.
Yeah, so did I. It could be the paper prices rising that kept those True Believers away. I think they just decide by what they think is going to sell.
That's Magic 8 Ball.
Yeah.
And probably that and what they can economically fit into the printer schedule.
Yeah, what they can fit in the printer schedule, what they think can sell, what movies are coming out. They used to do the True Believers by what movies are coming out. The facsimiles are just their most expensive. I wouldn't be surprised
they had some kind of an algorithm to do that.
I grabbed it, but I haven't read it yet. I like the art quite a bit. Like I said, it was solidly done. It was just for a younger crowd than me. Reckless by Brubaker has been good, but pricey at $20. I've been reading that on Hoopla, on the library app, just because it's weird if the Reckless by Brubaker and Phillips stuff had been coming out as comics, it would be in my pull list, and I'd be reading it that way. But then it just happened to be that, because like I said, I use Hoopla to read some stuff from the library, the digital library app. And the day Reckless came out in the comic shops, it was on Hoopla. So I borrowed it from Hoopla and read it that way. And all three of them I read that way. But they're actually on my Amazon pull list too. So
there was another one I borrowed recently. I borrowed another one recently from Hoopla, and the production on the screen on the PC monitor was just so small I couldn't read it that way.
You need a tablet.
No, there are other ways to go about it, but
yeah. But yeah, like I said,
size tablet.
When something's a graphic novel, I feel in no rush to get it. because for one, I put them on my wish list, and often my family will get stuff like from my wish list for birthdays and Christmas and stuff like that.
One other thing I've noticed too, you could probably do this with a decent tablet, is I really prefer 2 pages at the same time.
That's not how I read it on the tablet, but I know what you mean.
It's a different experience, yeah.
Yeah, because that's how you read a physical comic,
right?
But most of the time, reading a physical, you know what it is. It's not that, because most of the time you're reading. Most of the time you're reading a physical comic, you're trying to ignore that second page, unless it's a double page spread.
Depends on the artist and how he lays out the page.
Yeah, but it's usually one. You usually read the page on the left and then the page on the right, and you don't want to. You don't want to spoil anything for yourself, so you don't want to read. If you're doing like a
Steranko book or something like that, you'd want to see both pages at the same time to see how it all.
Unless it's some sort of bid, there are some like that, but generally they're not like that. But the problem with reading digitally is double page spreads have the opposite effect they're intended to have. Because when you're reading physically, it's like boom, double page spread. When you're reading digitally, it shrinks it because you're reading vertically, and it shrinks the horizontal double page spread down to one vertical, and it has a complete opposite effect. Instead of blowing you away, you're like, oh.
See, I want a tablet formatted like an oversized monitor, wider than it is tall.
Yeah, they're definitely leaving money going straight to hardcovers. I mean, yeah, they're leaving my money on the table. That's for sure. It would be on my pull, but I don't know why. I guess they find it easier somehow. Yeah, I'm sure it will be in soft cover and get out there. I'm glad Reckless is coming out this way. I'm not feeling those as much. Glad it's not dragged out over months. No, I'd be fine if it was dragged out over months. That's how I'd like to read this stuff. I liked them. I liked them reading on Hoopla. They were good. And like I said, I'll have maybe someday get them as physical, but like if they were individual comics, it would be on my pull list. So it's just weird to me that there's Brubaker and Phillips coming out that I'm not reading. They're all not buying on the Prometheus. Stinks to read digitally because a lot of double page spreads. Exactly. Anything like Jack Kirby reading digitally is like his double page spreads don't come across.
That's sad.
Yeah, like I said, that's the main problem I have with reading digitally is the opposite effect of double page spread should have.
I want a tablet that's the size of a Treasury size comic.
You mean opened up? You mean you want 2 pages of a Treasury?
No, just one suffice there. But I've always wanted bigger tablets than everybody else is. I'm weird that way. So.
Well, I'd love to get the big Apple Pro tablet. That must be great for reading comics on. Even though you can't, get 2 pages on it. One page is bigger than a comic page.
Have you seen prototypes of what are called scroll computers?
Scroll computers? No, I don't.
Yeah, they roll up like a scroll.
Okay.
Those are going to be neat when they eventually hit the market. They're big. Yeah.
And I just like to say that I bought the reason the last issue of Promethea is so hard to find is because people like me bought 2 copies of the last issue. One to keep as a regular comic and the other to take the staples out of and put it all together as the poster.
I've always wanted to read Promethea, but I've never got around to it.
Has anyone tried reading on a TV screen? Never have. Never have.
Reading on a TV screen works for something like a Kindle format where it's just text. But otherwise, not so much.
Yeah, I can't imagine reading Echo Lands. That'd be a tough digital read, but a lot of you're probably right. Most artists don't do double page spreads, and probably one of the reasons now is digital. I have when I downloaded an old manga, I had the computer hooked up to the TV.
Parents back then, did you have a computer? Or did you have an abacus?
Yeah, my computer screen is 27 inches, so if I want to read on that, I can read on it.
25, I think.
Yeah. You could read both sides of a comic on that easily if I wanted to sit in front of it and read. Well,
Right.
I generally don't.
Yeah, and I have my monitor sitting far enough away where it's not really conducive to reading either.
And my monitor is at standing height, so it'd be a lot tougher to read at standing height.
Sure.
Not as easy.
You just need to get a rack that you can just put yourself in. Yeah. That will hold you up like a book easel.
The Rise of Dracula. Who is this?
I got an illustrated novel version of Dracula. It's not word for word the Bram Stoker version, but it's illustrated by Ricardo Delgado, who did Age of Reptiles.
Okay.
It's really nice.
Rise of Dracula just caught my. It's a Source Point book. Are they a website, Source Point Press or something like that?
I have no idea.
I think they may. Or am I thinking of something else?
I've never even heard of Source Point before.
I could do without another Dracula story.
Yeah, vampire stories in general just been done to death. There are a couple people I will give a pass. Like if Mike Mignola does a vampire story, I'll usually read it.
I do have a read. Yeah, I do. It's ready to go. Want to see it?
Let's bring it up because we're getting near the end, so may as well see it before we go.
Okay, so let's share screen. Okay, am I on?
Yeah, I see it there. Let me add to stream. There we go. Ooh.
Okay, so Charlton Comics from cover dated. Not cover dated, but they came out in July 1976.
That's easy.
I don't know if it's well. I know which one I'm going to rip up.
I wonder if we're thinking the same thing already.
Space 1999 is what I'm going to rip up.
Nah, I'd slab that one.
Because I have that show disappointed me as a child. So I want to rip off that comic. Then I think I'm going to slab Secret Romance because it's got the sexy lady.
Wow, I don't agree at all.
And then read Korg 7000 BC.
Okay, we agree on that one. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to read Korg. I'm going to rip up Secret Romance, and I'm going to slab Space 1999.
No way. I'm going to take complete delight in ripping up Space 1999.
Yeah. Now I'm going to do the same thing as Scott.
See, Terrence agrees with me, too.
Slab Space? No, rip Space. Nice. Do you think that's a nice cover? Not at all. I don't like those paperback book collage covers.
Yeah, the Korg and the Space 1999 are both by Pat Boyette.
Ah, okay. Slab 99, Reed Korg. Everybody's ripping Secret Romance. You guys are madmen. Madmen. Didn't Byrne draw an issue of Space 1999?
I think he did.
He used to draw. Didn't Doomsday Plus One used to appear in the back of it?
No, it had its own comic.
It did, but I think it appeared in the back of other ones too.
I don't know. I mean, it came out through Charlton.
Yeah, I think that's where I first discovered Doomsday Plus One is in the back of a Charlton comic, and it may have been Space 1999. I'm not sure. I'd have to look.
The first exposure I got to it was actually later on when it was reprinted. It's called Doomsday. I think it's called Doomsday Plus 4. I think.
Ah, okay. And
that's the first place I ever saw John Byrne's work.
Rick Parker is doing a comic right now. He's been working on it about his being in the army in like the late 60s, early 70s or something. That he posts on Facebook sometime and gives us updates, but that looks pretty cool. After Tomb of Dracula, Mignola's adaptation of movie, no need for any more Dracula. Yeah, there we go. Space 1990. Yeah, I just remember being so bored by Space 1999 as a kid.
I loved Space 1999 as a kid.
Did not like it.
I mean, how can you rip up something that had the cool Eagle transporters though?
Those staple guns they use,
man.
I think it's because
on that show.
I think it's because it has Maya, and some people don't like the second season because it's too Star Trek-y.
Right.
I don't know what's. I was only a kid. I haven't seen it since then. All I know is they hung out on the moon and talked in rooms.
See,
and occasionally showed up with their staple guns.
Right, I like the staple guns. When I was a kid, I was like, the hell with all the characters. I want to see the spaceships.
It's like they didn't go anywhere. They were on the moon doing nothing.
I'm surprised. Well, maybe they did.
I read a Jules Pfeiffer book from the library the other day, Kill My Mother. Oh, okay. I don't think I've ever seen that one.
His Mother?
It was quite boring. But I loved the big Space 1999 ship I had as a kid. There we go. The toys were cool.
They sure were.
I wanted Space 1999 to be Star Trek, and it was nowhere near as
No, it was not.
But it didn't have to be. The Space 1999 was a British series. The fact that they had 2 American actors as main was precisely so you could sell it. So it could sell well in the American market.
I didn't know that when I was a kid. I just know I was bored by it.
So there were.
I just knew it's a show like Star Trek. Cool, I'll watch it. This isn't a show like Star Trek.
There were plans to make a comic on the UFO series that Jay Anderson did, but those never came to pass. I would have loved to seen those when I was a kid too.
Quite a chill. Oh, and I've been doing some drawings on comics this week. Can't remember what comic
that looks like somebody.
Drawing on old comics.
Anybody to me.
This is a Tarzan. This is the Tarzan I was making the cards out of, the Magic the Gathering cards. They had a couple of pages in the back that were all about animals. I'm like, oh, those are better to draw on. I think this was one of them too. You can just see a little bit of a logo sticking up through there. But there's some comic book related work. Drawing on comic books. Boy, drawing on 1970s newsprint is very delicate.
What are you using to draw on it with?
Marker and white pastel. Portuguese TV schedules The Love Boat, followed by Space 1999.
Yeah, and let's not even mention the Bewitched.
Now, later on, Paolo, did you guys get to see Manimal in Portugal?
Yeah, but only 1992.
God, that was an awful show.
Oh, yeah.
Saturday night in the States was The Love Boat and then Fantasy Island.
Yeah.
Fantasy Island was boring.
Mr. Rourke, how to solve their problems. I don't remember any. I used to watch Fantasy Island. I don't remember any of it.
The thing is, the first episode of Manimal was pretty good.
Because that's where all the budget went?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what happened.
Okay, and then every episode was the first episode. See, Manimal did it first before Marvel. Every comic is a new number one. Every episode is a pilot episode.
Just like Man from Atlantis.
We can wind down on Manimal now. Say goodnight to him. Beachcombers all the way. Everybody have a good night out there. Paolo's got to get to bed.
I'm not working tomorrow. I didn't work today. So
he's going to stay up for another 3 hours reading comics.
Yeah, or I'm going to go watch another live stream. I think Gino must be doing his live show right now.
I remember when Joey Man from Atlantis. Remember nothing about. I'm in the same boat as you. I watched it too. He had webbed fingers. That's about all I remember.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was in an episode of Man from Atlantis.
Mm-hmm. I think people here were interested in seeing it because it had Bobby from Dallas.
Right.
Yeah.
That was it.
Patrick Duffy.
All right. So have a good night out there, y'all. And we will catch you next week.
Bye.